Prime Minister Boris Johnson will today chair an emergency meeting of the Crisis Cabinet Cobra due to the escalating situation in Ukraine. It comes as US intelligence officials assess that Russian forces will be in a position to invade their neighbour as early as tomorrow. Our Home and Security Editor Mark White will have this report for us.
That story aside, headlines are these today. Let's have a look. So, the Prime Minister will chair that Cobra meeting today. It's a last-ditch effort to avoid any conflict in Ukraine. 6 o'clock is the time. You're waking up on this Tuesday, 15th of February, to breakfast on GBNews with Eamonn and Isabel. What else is happening today? Let's have a look.
Well, after speaking on the phone, both Boris and US President Joe Biden stressed there still remains a crucial window for democracy.
We're talking petrol today as petrol and diesel hit a new record high in terms of price. Our reporter has been out finding how it's affecting the pound in your pocket. Let us know at GB News.
A few months ago, we would think at weekend we'd go out for a run somewhere. Now you do that and you look at how much it's costing you. Just don't use the car. Walk.
Our very own Liam Halligan will join us to look at the latest set of unemployment figures. They come out at 7 a.m.
Plus, Labour leader Keir Starmer is urging us all to buy, make and sell in Britain. Do you do that? Do you buy British? You can join any of our discussions. The email address is gbviews@gbnews.uk, or again, that Twitter handle is @gbnews. OK, so as you heard there will be an emergency meeting of the Crisis Cabinet Cobra due to the escalating situation in Ukraine.
Yeah, this comes as US intelligence officials have assessed that Russian forces will be in a position to invade their neighbour as early as tomorrow. Our Home and Security Editor Mark White has this report.
After months of steady build-up by Russian forces, we have now reached a critical juncture. The US intelligence assessment is that Moscow will have enough military assets in place by tomorrow to begin an incursion into Ukraine if it desires. Boris Johnson has now cut short his levelling up visit to the north to chair a full meeting of the UK's Crisis Cabinet Cobra. The Foreign Secretary promised severe sanctions on Russia's rich and powerful should Moscow choose the path of conflict.
We've just introduced new sanctions legislation, which is the toughest we've ever had against Russia. That enables us not to just target companies with direct effect on Ukraine, but anybody or any company that has a bearing on the Russian state.
In Lithuania, German tanks have arrived to support the NATO battle group there as Germany's Chancellor heads to Moscow today, warning there is no division between NATO allies for Vladimir Putin to exploit.
I am making it clear once again here in Kiev that Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity are non-negotiable for Germany. We therefore expect Russia to take clear steps to de-escalate the current tensions.
Across Ukraine, many civilians are volunteering to train to defend their nation should Russia invade. People all ages, some with experience in fighting, many with none.
I'm a very peaceful person, and my everyday life skills include cross-stitching, cooking, and so on. But now, I understand that we might have to stand against well-prepared people. And whatever the outcome, in order to resist these people, I must be trained at least a little bit.
And throughout Ukraine, there are mixed views on the vexed question of whether Ukraine should join NATO, an existential threat to Russia, but an option many here believe is vital in safeguarding their security.
The idea that we could potentially give up the goal of joining NATO just because Russia invades us is simply nonsense. Russia had attacked us in the past when, according to our constitution, we were a non-aligned state. That's why I don't see any point in giving up on the goal of joining NATO.
Many countries have already stated their opinion on Ukraine joining NATO clearly and precisely. Basically, it's not exactly like they're eagerly awaiting us there. That's why we should focus on better development of our economy.
These Russian and Belarusian jets are currently exercising near the Ukrainian border. They'd likely be first in ahead of any ground invasion. With his forces now pretty much all in place, the world is watching as the next move lies with Vladimir Putin. Mark White, GB News.
Other news today, a senior officer admits racism is a problem in the Metropolitan Police.
The Deputy Assistant Commissioner, Baz Javid, says people who have racist views are working in the force. He said, however, the Met is not a racist organisation and people are working hard to root out the problem.
Northern Ireland's remaining coronavirus restrictions will be lifted and replaced by guidance today. Under current rules, people are still required to wear face masks in public and COVID certificates are needed for nightclubs. The Health Minister will make an order revoking the remaining rules later today.
One of the developers of the Oxford AstraZeneca coronavirus vaccine will collect her damehood today. Professor Dame Sarah Gilbert will receive the honour at Windsor Castle for her services to science and public health.
Sir Keir Starmer has said that a Labour government would back businesses to buy, make and sell in Britain. The Labour leader also stressed the need to make Brexit work after having said that he would not seek to re-enter the EU if Labour came to power.
Bristol Zoo Gardens in Clifton will shut its doors for good in September, having been open since 1836. It's been struggling with a lack of visitors over recent years, and all the animals will move to a wildlife park in South Gloucestershire.
Over 70s are being urged that it's never too late to start exercising. New research published in the journal Heart suggests just 20 minutes a day can reduce your risk of cardiovascular disease. 20 minutes, just 20 minutes exercise. 20 minutes exercise is quite a lot.
Yeah, especially if you're of that age.
I do that, I say, well, I'll just do 10 minutes today, and it goes very, very slowly.
Yeah,
I'm not even that age.
No,
not
exactly.
even remotely near that age.
Yeah, but you just got to get it done. 20 minutes done. 20 minutes in your day is hardly anything.
It is a point because, you see, the difference between you and me is I sleep soundly now in the evening because I exercise during the day, whereas you obviously don't do anything and you lie awake.
I've never done so little movement as since I've done these early shifts, because up until then I've pretty much spent my time running around with little kids and then working at weekends, but now my week's upside down and I'm not getting enough exercise, so I do need to up the ante. I definitely do. But that story about Bristol Zoo, it's really sad. I went to university in Bristol and lived in Clifton, and you could hear the lions roaring over the walls in the middle of the city centre. And I went there so many times. I went there for the 40th anniversary of Wallace and Gromit. The makers, obviously, Aardman Animations, are from there. So many times over the years. I think it's really sad it's closing.
But what do you do with an old zoo? I mean, do you just demolish it? Who do you sell it off
Well, I
to?
think they're going to turn it into flats, probably, and
that's
build on
probably
the
what
space. But it's a lovely
used to
little
be,
green
when I was
oasis.
a kid, there was a programme called Animal Magic.
Yeah.
Presented by Johnny Morris, a zookeeper. Was he a zookeeper? Well, he pretended to be a zookeeper in this, but then he would give voices to the animals. So if it was an elephant, you know, it would, well, I can't really talk like an elephant, but he would talk like an elephant or a chimpanzee or whatever it happened. Do you remember Animal Magic, anybody? And so that's where it was all filmed. Bristol Zoo.
Right. Nice.
So, you know.
It's the end of an era.
Yeah.
No,
What are
it's
those
sad.
lazy animals? What are those ones that...
Sloths.
Sloths. So, I mean, you could do a voice like that. The voice would be very slow, whatever, to be like a sloth or...
Aardman Animations also did something very similar with all of the sort of zoo animals, but made out of, obviously, plasticine, and then they did all the accents as well. It rings a bell with...
Now, on the subject of animals...
Yeah.
There's a lot of complaints now, and there's a petition to do away with extendable leads. So if you're a dog owner, dog walker, are you a fan of the traditional fixed lead or the new extendable leads that have these little triggers on them? So
You like the extendables?
I certainly do like the extendables, no matter what everybody...
Well, if you lived in Devon, you could be fined £1,000 if
Ridiculous.
your lead was longer than a metre.
Well, my lead is longer than a metre.
Well, you can't live in Devon then.
Well, that's ridiculous.
Well, the problem is it's interfering with bicycles and things on cycle paths because the dogs are basically just wandering off. No, but people are having terrible accidents. I think there was one cyclist awarded something like £60,000 in
I don't see why you're walking your dog on a cycle path, for number one. Number two is there still could be an accident if the dog was off the lead, so the dog's better on the lead. And, you know, you can't walk around streets and whatever and let your dog off the lead because cars fly around and cycles and whatever. So the extendable lead, I think, is a very, very
Oh, no, it's definitely a great thing if you're out and about in an open space and your dog's not well enough trained to come back to you. But if you're in a really busy space like a road or...
You need an extendable lead because...
Well, no, because then you need to keep them on a meter so that you don't collide with traffic and bicycles and cause fatal injuries.
I'd like to have you on a lead. Tell you that. At GBNews, GBViews at gbnews.uk. Right, so if you're a doggy owner, are you a fan of the retractable leads? And if you're just a moaner, would you like just to moan about retractable leads? No, honestly, there are people who wake up in the morning and they want to moan.
That's true, that
they
is
just
true.
want to be offended. So today you're going to be offended by stretchy dog
Well,
leads.
can I read out one of these tweets that are offended by stretchy dog leads? Lynn Herbert says, 2 weeks ago I was bitten on the leg by a dog, the owner on the pavement, and I went in the middle of the road to avoid the dog, but the owner didn't retract the lead, so it got me. Retractable leads are no good if the dog owners don't use them properly.
Well, the problem there is not the lead. The problem is the dog. Why would a dog bite?
I think the problem is the dog owner, really.
The dog owner didn't bite.
Well, the dog owner didn't control their dog.
No, yes, and hasn't trained their dog enough to bite. I think it's a sick dog that bites.
Yeah.
Nobody's dog bites.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Unless it's rabid or something. Something wrong there. What else is
Hey Sue 13 says, when I walk my dog, it's easier with an extendable lead. I can carry on while walking whilst he stops for a sniff and then he catches up. When people are about, I keep the lead short. Too many pathetic pie holes in high places with nothing better to do and zero common sense.
Yeah. You know, I haven't you meet so many people when you have a dog.
That's true.
You know, they want to come up and talk to you, they want to admire you, and they want to
and the dog as well.
And the dog as well. They want to do all those things. Right, so let us know. Keep those comments coming in at GB News, and let's sort this out today. So you're saying in Devon, £1,000 if your lead's more than a metre long?
Yeah. If you're watching in Devon, and I know lots of you do, let us know if you've been fined. I'd love to hear from you. What did you make of it?
The Duchess of Cornwall has tested positive for COVID for the first time.
Yes, this follows on from her husband, the Prince of Wales, who tested positive on Thursday. A Clarence House spokesman said they would follow government guidelines. Buckingham Palace has added that the Queen has shown no COVID symptoms.
They're not saying she hasn't got COVID, though. That's interesting.
Yeah.
She's no symptom. What's that called?
Well, it could be asymptomatic.
Asymptomatic.
Yeah.
See, these are weasel words. So I reckon she has got COVID,
Do you reckon?
but she just hasn't got symptoms of it.
Let's find out what Charles Ray thinks. He's the former royal correspondent for The Sun. Very good morning to you. Do you think these are weasel words? Do you suspect that the Queen might have COVID?
I always suspect anything that the Palace says, to be honest. Have done for years. But, I mean, at the moment, as you quite rightly said, Isabel, they're saying that she's not displaying any symptoms and they're refusing to say if she's taken a test, never mind if she's negative or positive. So at the moment, we have to accept that, thankfully, she is fine.
OK, and the concern, of course, is that Prince Charles, who tested positive on Thursday last week, had afternoon tea with Her Majesty a week ago today, so last Tuesday, and there was some concern that he might have been emanating the virus before he knew he was positive.
Well, I'm sure that the royal doctors, in knowing this, would have taken the appropriate steps with the Queen. I mean, I doubt very much anybody's going to start taking any risks with Her Majesty at all at this great age that she is at 95, and given that she's just celebrated the Platinum Jubilee. We just got to keep our fingers crossed that she, in fact, is okay, because obviously, again, she's in the vulnerable age group.
And so is Camilla, it has to be said. And we end up, it's her that we know has it, and everybody's talking about the Queen. What about poor Camilla?
Poor old Camilla's has got it, and this is one of the reasons why we know that she's got it, and Prince Charles, is because she's been carrying out on the same day a string of engagements, and all the people that she came into contact with, including the travelling entourage and the press and everything else who were there, had to be notified and told, so that they too can be take appropriate steps. So yeah, let's hope that if she has got COVID, because they've announced that, and that it's a mild form, as with Prince Charles. But poor old Prince Charles, this is the second time he's caught it. He caught it last March as well. So he's been going through the wars too.
And if he tests negative for 2 days in a row, then he can come out of isolation from today. I believe it's the 5 days are up today. Has he been? We're led to believe that he's been quite well with it this time around, triple jab and everything.
Well, they're both triple jabbed, which is good, and they keep on telling us that if you're triple jabbed and you do catch COVID, it's not going to have as bad an effect on you, or shouldn't have as bad an effect on you as if you weren't jabbed. And you're absolutely right. Today's the day that he'll be tested again, and if he's clear for I think it was whole 2 days, then he'll be back and about and doing his work. But of course, he won't be leaving anywhere. And while Camilla is still suffering.
Yeah, it shows really how exposed the royals are to all sorts of bugs and germs and whatever, because they meet so many people, Charles. And
sure.
No wonder the Queen often wears gloves.
Yes, I mean, she's worn gloves for donkey's years, because I mean, she's obviously shaking an awful lot of hands in those years. And you're absolutely right. I mean, people like Charles and Camilla, and members of the government and everything, meet so many people throughout their daily business, that it's no wonder that they catch everything that's going from colds to COVID. But all we can do now is just hope that the royals are taking it easy, sitting back with their feet up and just relaxing while it all passes off.
Charles, you don't have a dog, do you?
I do, and I've just been listening to your comments about it. Now, I think you're wrong about the extended leads. I've got 2 dogs, and the extended leads, you've got a valid point about the leads. But of course, if we see people walking them on the pavement, and dogs are strange beasts, as you well know, Eamonn. And if they suddenly see a cat on the other side of the road, they'll dart across, and on an extended lead, that means they could dart into the traffic.
Not my dog. My dog answers.
Saint Maggie.
It just hears her master's voice, and she immediately stops. But the thing I suppose, Charles, about the retractable lead, it's like you can put a brake on it immediately. You can just straighten it. It just goes tight when you press that button. But it works for me.
Process.
Yes, but I mean, if you're in the open places, then I can see the value of extended leads. But dog owners at times, tend not to look too hard at their dogs and what's surrounding them. And people, I heard that woman who got bitten, and she moved into the road, and the dog came after her. Well, as you quite rightly say, that's not the dog's fault; that's the owner's fault.
Yeah. Do you know, you never see the Queen's dogs on leads. The corgis.
That's what I said. Really well-trained dogs. You don't need leads.
I didn't say really. They're pampered dogs.
Oh, right.
Not really.
Well, I'm sure that
you never see the Queen out with the dog on a lead. They just follow her like little tribbles.
Yeah, I bet they're
all around her.
super well-trained.
And the Queen's dogs are can be vicious little beasts that they have been in the past. And I have actually seen them take nips out of various people's legs, especially valets.
Charles Ray, thank you very much. Stay safe, Charles. Enjoy your dog walk today. What have you got, Charles? What sort of dog have you got?
We've got 2 standard poodles.
Oh, standard. But do you know what? Such a rarity these days, because they're all cockapoos and
Labradoodles.
and God knows what.
They're all mongrels, as you well know, Eamonn. They're not purebred dogs. People pay thousands and thousands of pounds for a mongrel.
Well, I have a mongrel.
A hybrid.
I have a mongrel, and I'm very happy I have a mongrel. Much more interesting. Charles, thank you very much indeed. Good talking to you. Cheers. I did tell you this, didn't I? I did tell you that my dog, I got a DNA test done on her.
Oh, of course you did.
Yes, because she's a rescue dog.
Are they going to do a documentary where Who Do You Think You Are on Maggie?
But I told you what she is,
No, what is she?
She's a cross between a border collie and a sausage dog.
Oh, that's a lovely combo.
Think of how that came about. That
Oh,
wasn't
I don't
easy.
want to think about that.
That wasn't easy.
It's only 6:19
She's got a
in the
long
morning.
body, short legs.
Stop.
Looks like a collie, but is like a dwarf collie, basically.
She's very lovely. She's a very lovely
She is
Mongol doggy.
gorgeous.
Yeah, let us know what...
Have you ever had a DNA test?
I don't know where this
You're
is
an
going.
interesting combination.
I am
too.
quite a weird combo, yeah. I'm proud of it. Right, it's 6:20. I think we'll take a quick break. After that, we'll be travelling up to Altrincham to see how the record petrol prices are affecting people's day-to-day lives.
I used to live on the Altrincham Road.
Can't get through anything this morning. Did you?
Yes.
What happened there?
I lived there
Oh,
for
good
7
for you.
years. Just saying. In Cheshire. It was Manchester, but anyway. Here's the weather.
Hello, very good morning to you. A damp start out there this morning. Rain at times through the rest of the day, but eventually clearing away, albeit lingering in the south. And then a stormy rest of the week as the jet stream, powerful current of winds high in the atmosphere, picks up and spins up a number of storms. Storm Dudley coming through Wednesday night. Storm Eunice Friday. So it's the northern half of the UK with Storm Dudley that will be worst affected by the wind, and then the southern half affected by Storm Eunice on Friday. Pay close attention to Met Office weather warnings and forecasts. At first this morning, outbreaks of rain pushing into southern parts of the country and lingering for a time this afternoon with a strong breeze around the coast. It is going to feel unpleasant here. Elsewhere, brightening skies, some sunshine coming through, but further showers for Scotland, Northern Ireland, Northern England, and these showers falling as snow over the hills. Feeling cold in the north, 5 or 6 Celsius for Scotland, 10 or 11 Celsius in the far south. Clearing skies very briefly this evening, and then overnight the next batch of wind and rain moves in from the west. A damp night for most. The far north of Scotland staying clear of the rain, and here a touch of frost is possible, 0 degrees for the likes of Aberdeen and Stornoway, but further south 8s, 9s for Cardiff, London, Southampton, but a damp and increasingly windy start to the day tomorrow. Gales are on exposed coasts in the south, but increasingly as the first area of rain moves away and the next batch of wet weather moves in for Scotland, Northern Ireland, Northern and Western England and Wales by the afternoon. Attention, as far as the winds are concerned, moves north. And Storm Dudley by this stage is starting to approach Scotland. And as a result, well, it's across northern parts of the UK where widespread gales are expected overnight into Wednesday and Thursday. And risk of damaging or disruptive winds, especially for central and southern Scotland, Northern Ireland and Northern England. An amber warning is in force.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate.
From all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
Make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel.
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
That you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before. It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
It's very almost 6:25. Good morning to you on TV and radio. This is Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel on GB News.
We're talking fuel prices next. They've hit a new record at the pumps across the UK, ultimately tightening the squeeze on consumers.
Well, the AA reported that oil prices hit their highest level in 7 years and are expected to climb further in coming weeks. But how does that impact on your spending and your ability to move around?
Well, let's hear from our North West of England reporter, Bradley Harris.
These fuel increases are certainly going to have an impact for many, many people. There are over 30 million drivers in the UK. And for many people waking up, going into their car and heading off to work or to see family or friends, some people might be thinking twice before heading to the pumps. Certainly in the coming days and weeks, it'll be hard to ignore petrol forecourts showing prices of over £1.48 a litre. That's how much it was over last weekend. Last Thursday, diesel was actually over £1.51 a litre. And the AA are now saying that the cost of filling up a 55-litre family car will set you back over £81. So certainly people up and down the country who are already facing an impact on the cost of living crisis, energy bills going up. This will be an added cost for people who rely on cars to get around. Here in Altrincham, it's not the same as being in big cities such as London, where there are convenient, efficient and fast transport networks. For many people here, they have to rely on the car to get around. So as soon as the fuel prices go up, that immediately will have an impact on people. And I've actually been chatting to motorists to find out how much of an impact this is having. Let's just hear some of their thoughts.
A few months ago, we would think at weekend we'd go out for a run somewhere. It's Saturday or Sunday. Now we're thinking, we look at the weather, if there's any sort of chance of rain, miserable day, we'll say, no, it's not worth it, because when you used to travel 30 mile there, 30 mile back, fair enough. Now you do that and you look at how much it's costing you. Just don't use the car, walk or stop in.
It's having a fairly big impact as I need to use the car for work. I work as a fitness instructor and travel to different leisure centres and health clubs around the area. If fuel prices got so high, then I'd maybe have to look at perhaps not travelling as far, changing my work routine. May have to change because it wouldn't be cost effective to be travelling to these places for what I get paid for doing the classes. Or my other alternative is I'd need to look at a smaller car or a cheaper car to run.
Well, I mean, we've got a couple of cars we use to do recoveries. We've noticed a difference there. You know, what we're doing the same amount of recoveries, but the fuel is we're using more fuel, it's more expensive, isn't it? So it's a tenner a week extra. We don't put that on the job. We just got to swallow that and just go with it.
Now, fuel prices at the pump are largely driven by the wholesale price of energy, which shot up recently because of tensions between Russia and Ukraine. On Monday, oil prices hit their highest level since 2014, reaching over $95 a barrel. At the moment, it's $1.48 here in Altrincham, but in the coming days and weeks to come, I think many people's eyes will be looking up to the signs on petrol forecourts, thinking twice before they fill up at the pumps.
Well, it's a big worry for so many people. Yeah. I mean, if you use your car to get to work and whatever, it's, you're probably filling up at least one more time extra in over 3 weeks than you would have before, which will cost £60 to £80, won't it, that you wouldn't normally have been spending. So also, a lot of people feel that our petrol and diesel, the formula is a bit different. It's supposed to be more environmentally friendly, but a lot of you are saying that it doesn't go the same distance. You can't get the same mileage out of it, so it is less efficient. So from that point of view, you're going less of a distance and you're paying more for it, which is pretty bad. So if you've got a tale to tell on that, get in touch. There you are. There's the email out there, or you can tweet at GBNews as well.
Okay, with the time coming up to
incidentally, that man talked about you can't go a run anymore.
Here we go.
You balked at that. When I was young and in Ireland, we would go run every Sunday. You go run down to the coast or up mountains or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Then I met the present Mrs. Holmes.
The present Mrs.
She has this thing. Why would you go in a car if you didn't know where you were going? I used to say we'd go for a wee Stirling Moss, right? You used to go out driving for no reason, maybe to get an ice cream, just to look at the scenery, whatever. No. So now you, Mrs. Green Pea here.
It's got nothing to do with green. I just like getting outside and using my legs. And if I was going for a run, I'd be running. And if I was going up a mountain, I'd be walking up a mountain.
How do you get to the mountain?
Yeah, I might drive. But I'd be going like Mrs. Holmes. I would be getting in the car to go from A to B, not just, I can't bear
That's pretty functional. That's pretty boring.
No, because I would go and have my explore on foot. But my husband's the same. Sometimes if we're coming back from somewhere, he'll go, let's just, find our way and just meander. No, I want to get out the car as soon as I possibly can.
Do you not think that's a condition with you?
No, I think it's pretty normal.
You have to be told, this is like my wife, well, where are we going? I don't know, we'll just see where it takes us. But where exactly are we going?
Yeah,
This is you.
Yes.
This is you.
Yes.
And your husband, like me, is Celtic.
Well, I think it's the Irish, I do think it's the Irish gene.
Wandering spirit.
It's the same with timekeeping. He doesn't really understand timekeeping, and I think you're the same. Yeah.
The time is 6:31 and 8 seconds. We're now late for the papers. We're going to be back after those. GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
Basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
On this Tuesday morning, the front pages stack up like this, beginning with the Daily Telegraph.
Many of the papers leading on the same story as the Telegraph. Ukraine, of course, they say the path to peace is still open for Russia after talks between President Biden and Prime Minister Johnson.
The Mirror says the Russian army could strike within hours, as this is the last chance to stop war. The paper, like many of the other tabloids, features Naomi Campbell, not looking like herself, but there she is with her baby. And this is for a Vogue photo shoot. 51 years of age she is.
Yeah, and it is her biological daughter, she's confirmed. Here's the Metro, also featuring that, what I think will become an iconic image of Naomi Campbell, being described as a model mum, stating that it is indeed her baby. Interesting, though, she's prepared to show her baby in the nude, but won't ask the baby's name, which I think is interesting.
Right, true. And also the fact that, am I right in saying there are no pictures of her pregnant? No one's seen her pregnant?
Yes, exactly. So lots of speculation about whether or not perhaps she used a surrogate, because I think she was seen on a runway during the time that her baby would have been in, what's the word? In vitro? Anyway, right, the Eye reports residents of Kiev are prepping shelters, air raid shelters, as they fully expect a Russian invasion.
Daily Mail writes that at least 33 people have died waiting for justice in the post office IT scandal. We're going to be talking about this next with our newspaper reviewers. The Mail also features that Naomi Campbell picture. The baby, she says, is the nameless baby, is the love of her life.
The Sun, meanwhile, uses its front page to discuss a recent incident in a pub allegedly involving the Everton and England goalkeeper Jordan Pickford.
Yes, what it's saying is, anyway, I just got back in vision. What they're saying is Jordan Pickford he's a goalkeeper.
Yeah.
But they say that he's got little tiny arms.
I know, but I think that's really mean.
I think it's hugely funny.
No, and I think that
so he's like a dinosaur has got long legs and little tiny arms.
Because you know what? I genuinely thought this in the car when I was listening to the news on the way in this morning. I thought there are going to be kids that are now going to use that. No, I just think it's really mean.
Finally, the Daily Star discusses the ongoing legal battle. This was yesterday. Rebecca Vardy and Colleen Rooney. Mrs. Rooney was granted access to text exchanges between Mrs. Vardy and her agent. Vardy won, Roo won. Right, let's get inside those newspapers now. And do you know what? I think we should start, Nikki Hodgson and Chris Akabusi, we should say here. Nikki, I think we should really start with that post office
why not?
situation. We just mentioned there, 33 people have died, not seeing justice, and their names tarnished, their reputations rubbished because of this post office scandal.
Yeah, so the post office scandal had been running, well, it kind of came to light between 2000 and 2015 when 3,500 postmasters were accused of taking money from their post offices. And it was all down to an IT glitch. And why it's so shocking is because over those years, those people, they were accused of stealing the money, they were put in prison, their lives fell apart, their reputations were destroyed.
They were regarded as thieves.
And then 33 of them have died without ever receiving justice, even though it's been a very long, drawn-out case at the High Court. And the Mail report is very, very good at going into the details of just how horrific it was for them and their lives.
So as a miscarriage of justice, this is absolutely massive.
It's considered to be, I mean, the judges who are kind of reported in the story are saying it's probably the worst miscarriage of justice in the past 25 years in the legal system.
Yeah, and what's so frightening, I suppose, is that this is, example of when tech is believed over people and their own word, and I'm sure this is going to be something that happens more and more. And I think the third...
Tech couldn't possibly be wrong.
Well, everyone just assumes that, and I don't think these 33 deaths even include the numbers of suicides linked to this case.
The biggest ramification is the social injustice, because you've got guys, like when I say guys, men and women, upstanding citizens, centrifugal to their community, running a post office, being accused of stealing, they themselves knowing that they haven't been doing the stealing, but the gaslighting effect. There was one story in there of an ex-policeman who then actually owned up to stealing. He hadn't done it, but he felt that I must have done something, and so he owned up to it, and then, like you've said, he passed away. And that, there's a book I love by Stephen Batchelor called Alone with Others, and it's the idea that we're thrown into the world and find ourselves surrounded by others. And that social conformity and wanting to belong is vitally important for our sustenance in life. And so for this chapman, for the 3,500, to be seen as a leper, a stealer, something less than being part of the team is dreadful. And so that is it for me, that social leper.
Yeah, the shame.
The shame, thank you.
What is happening to rectify this?
Well, apparently, because it's coming to light that people covered up the IT scandal as well. It wasn't just that the IT scandal happened and then, they didn't do anything about it. There'll be ministers at the time who were involved in this, civil servants and post office officials that have literally covered up the evidence. And so what is happening is this huge investigation. But what is also very disturbing is that the victims of the scandal are going to be put back on the stand, not as, potential criminals, but they're going to have to revisit the trauma. So it's going to be very, very difficult for them to get this miscarriage of justice overturned.
But of course, there are 33 of them who died, who will never get to make the stand, and the only person that that knew they were innocent was their partner. That he was, he or she, love, I didn't do it. I know we didn't do it. I'm happy to go to rest. But just think of the trauma in going to your grave, knowing you're innocent, but society doesn't.
Yeah, and that happened 33 times, just awful.
Chris, let's bring you in here, and the front pages, many of the front pages about what is deemed to be the imminent war in the Ukraine and the last-ditch efforts to stop it, the eye.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really important. So, nobody wants war. I don't even think Putin really wants war. I think, but I've got to ask myself, what is it that Putin really wants? And I'm sure that there are people at the top echelons who are asking this question, what's in it for Mr. Putin? What does he really, really want? Because at the end of everything, we're going to dialogue at the beginning. If there was a war, we will dialogue at the end. The tragedy is there'll be body bags going to Russia and Ukraine, and we don't want that, we don't need that. But what does Putin really, really want? One of the things we can see, he set the stage. Russia's been a declining power. When I was a soldier, back in the 80s and 90s, Russia was this great big superpower and equal to the United States of America. It's declined in significance. He's now centre of stage. He's also somebody now who can say to his people, see, we are actually really, really important. These exercises that they're doing on the edge of Ukraine, they do them internally anyway, but of course on the edge of Ukraine, it's now getting really, really worrying. So he set the stage, he's testing the West resolve, he's testing whether we've got unity, he's cementing his pledge, his posterity. Because, right now, you've got to think that he's what is he, 60?
No, he's 70.
There you go.
Yeah.
So this is a last attempt for a man to solidify his legacy. What is he going to stand for? And the idea that he could unify Ukraine, he can't, but is appealing to him. And of course, finally, halting NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organisation, halting the spread of Ukraine coming. Because if Ukraine was part of NATO, then of course the whole Western world will be involved in the war.
Do you think that he's actually enjoying the fact that, Western leaders are all
100%.
scrambling to be sat at the giant table with him and trying to appease...
And the idea, the idea, he's at the end of the table and he puts you at the end of the table.
You're so far away the camera
can't see it. But actually, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
I can move you up there.
We have a big Putin table here. Now listen, Nikki, again, you've hit it right on the nail on the head here, the things people are talking about today. And the Times have got this, page 2 of the Times, and these are the petrol prices, and we're putting it out there and we're asking people their experience. This is ridiculous, and it's largely going unreported, and it's affecting everybody's life every day.
Absolutely, and you could say it's a little offshoot of the situation in Russia, Ukraine. There is a little bit to do with that, but it's also to do with Boris Johnson not capping the prices for people.
Yeah.
I mean, the reality is that, an average family car now, if you want to fill it up, it costs £81.41. That is astronomical. Yes. What choices are people going to have to make? Because they're not going to be able to afford to fill their cars up. Is it that they go to work and they don't take their kids out at the weekends? Is it that they don't go to work? Is it that they find other jobs? Is it that they try and use public transport? Well, that's not going to work because the prices are going to go up anyway because, public transport runs on petrol.
Yeah.
This is a really important problem for Boris Johnson to solve. Get on top of this. Stop blaming inflation. And Keir Starmer, on the other hand, needs to come up with a solution and, put that forward if he wants any chance of winning at the next election, because this is what matters to people.
It does matter to people. I absolutely agree with you.
Yep.
Should we take a look, Chris, at the story that you've chosen from The Guardian? And I think it's really interesting, your perspective as an Olympian. And we had this breaking during our programme yesterday, the news that Kamila Valieva, this 15-year-old Russian, will still be able to compete today in the figure skating, despite having tested positive for illegal banned substances.
Yeah, I would wonder what the other athletes in the arena think about this, because if banned substances are found in her system, they're in her system, personally, she shouldn't be competing. I know it's hard on the 15-year-old young lady because it's not down to her. She's not done the purchasing, she's not done the underlying stuff, that people around her. But actually, this happens to athletes, when I say all the time, those athletes that get themselves embroiled in drugs.
Chris, let me ask you, how does that happen? Does a coach come along and say, you need this injection? And whether you're 15 or not, do you not say, why do I need this injection? What's this injection doing to me?
So I got approached when I was 25, 26. I was a young soldier, I was a sergeant, and I didn't go there because I was married, wasn't sure what effect drugs would have on my children, on any future progeny. I knew that as a sergeant I'd get dishonourable discharge. And so I just given a couple of reasons that required maturity to be able to make that decision.
Was that recreational drugs, or was that...
No.
That was
performance enhancement drugs, yeah.
But was it put to you that this is all legit, or was it...
No, it wasn't. No, you knew it wasn't legit, but you thought other people are doing it. That, OK, you've reached a certain standard. I was in Team GB now, but if you want to be the top, you're going to have to go down this way. Now, you only got my word for it. It took me 15 years to be overnight success, but I got there in the end. Dedication, commitment, continual training.
Talent.
Well, a modicum of talent, because I wasn't as talented as some people, but I had my talent was my body didn't break down. Yeah. I could layer year on year. But when you're 15 and your coach says you're in this environment, you're super talented, but you're going to need to do this, how does she choose? What are the moral things that are impacting against her decision-making process? And so I can understand how difficult it was for her. But unfortunately, it's in your body and you've got a competitive advantage against everybody else. You've got to go. And I can understand not embarrassing her at the games, but then what happens is some other athlete who would win the gold medal doesn't get it.
Well, she's favourite to win, isn't she?
Oh, 100%.
And you just think no one will ever believe that was based on pure talent. So not only is she being taken advantage of in being given the drugs in the first place, but her actual reputation is ruined because no one will ever believe that her talent was good enough to win on its own. Yeah. It's a real tragedy, I think, for her.
Oh, well, it is. It is for her because, this young lady could have been as big as any sports star as you want to imagine, but now she's a drug cheat.
Also, isn't it a form of child abuse when somebody is 15? Because that's what I kept thinking about it. You're right, Chris. I mean, some 15-year-olds might be able to be very strong against a coach, but actually most of them...
It's not their fault.
The power dynamic is just, so perverted in that situation.
You can't be strong against a coach.
I mean, Isabel just said it's not her fault. Right, we'll all sort of accept that. However, she is the recipient of an illegal enhancement. Therefore, it is her fault. She's out. That's that way it goes.
Yeah.
It's interesting, though, the Court of Arbitration, how they thought about her, how they thought
about
there
was a phrase that they used that it would affect her mental health or something if she... What was
she's
the phrase?
She's 15 now, but this could have started when she was 8, 9, 10.
Gosh.
So then she's a little kid and she's got no choice. Yeah. All she wants to do is represent Russia and be a great example of what we can do. Because sport, in the absence of war... elevates a country.
Soft power.
100%, 100%. So you've got to think of all of that. And her being proud that she's representing her community. Yes. And of course, she doesn't think it's going to affect her. She doesn't think when she's 50, 60.
But let me ask you this as well. Bearing in mind what she actually does, which is a form of gymnastics or choreography or whatever, where would the enhancement actually come in terms of stamina or...?
Some of the moves, some of the strength moves that they are doing, the ability to do a triple somersault and hold a line on the top of your toes. There was so many avenues. And also, I don't know what drugs they were.
This is an angina-related drug, so I assume it's to do with heart and, made some sort of cardiac benefit.
So is it calming so that she can be collective and go into a completely different zone? Because, our rational side is just a very small percentage. Knowing the emotions and being part of the aura and the arena and the ambience and actually, this poetical...
Yeah. I could see you as a figure skater. Just doing all the moves.
The virtuosity, and actually really exemplifying the whole spirit of the games. So
I think, though, whatever happens, she's lost people.
Yeah, I agree.
Of course she has.
But
she's a kid.
She's 15.
Guys, for the moment, thank you very much indeed. Nikki and Chris will be back in an hour's time. I hope you can join us for that, or if you can't, tell other people that they're on, or record them, or do what you want.
Watch it back on our app.
It's now 11 minutes before 7 o'clock. British nationals in Ukraine have been warned not to expect a military evacuation, and they're being urged to leave immediately.
Yeah, this is amid fears of that Russian invasion that we've been talking about this week. The UK and the US have been joined now by multiple countries in issuing warnings to citizens who are still in the country.
Well, our London reporter Alice Porter spoke to some Britons who are in the process of trying to leave Ukraine.
Ukrainian forces preparing in case of another Russian invasion. Meanwhile, thousands of British citizens have been trying to get flights out of Ukraine after the government advised them to leave as soon as possible.
I've been in two minds about coming back because of the advice coming out by the British Embassy about the amber alert, red alert. A lot of people, a lot of students were waiting for the red alert, and it happened yesterday. Once that happened, everybody booked their tickets and left.
The Foreign Office says in-person consular assistance to Britons who remain in Ukraine will not be possible, as more than 100,000 Russian troops are currently amassed on Ukraine's border.
The danger is a very real one that the Russians will attack again, and this time not simply take chunks of territory, but might attack with missiles aimed at strategic targets, particularly infrastructure, to sow panic, confusion, and ultimately to result in the change of government.
So you're in Kyiv at the moment and you're going to be getting on a flight today out of the country. What are you hearing in terms of the situation at airports? Is it being well managed, or are we seeing some quite chaotic scenes of people quite desperate to get out of the country?
There are all sorts of rumors flying around that airlines, international airlines, may stop flying to Ukraine. And we are very anxiously watching the news. The main problem being that insurers of airlines are not willing to risk, serious security issues in the skies over Ukraine. Remember, it was the MH17 that was shot down over Ukraine in 2014.
For those who've been living in Ukraine for most of their lives, getting on a flight out of the country comes with mixed emotions.
I will feel very sad. I will feel very, shall we say, aware that there are many millions that would have left for a safe haven or refuge that do not have that chance. But I will go with a sense of responsibility to do my utmost to help Ukraine, Europe, Britain through these darkest hours that we face.
Alice Porter, GB News.
Britain is expected to be hit with 2 storms in the space of 3 days this week. The Met Office is warning of blizzard-like conditions and wind speeds of up to 90 miles an hour.
Yes, a yellow alert has been given already for Storm Dudley, which will hit northern regions on Wednesday, and then Storm Eunice is set to follow on Friday.
Last month, we were rocked by Storm Malik, which battered energy lines and left thousands without power. Joining us now to tell us what we can expect from the twin storms, Jim Dale. Jim, good morning to you. Jim's a senior meteorologist at British Weather Services. How bad's it going to be, Jim?
It's kind of how long's a piece of string. These storms, we kind of miss these in the winter time for the most part. We got the early storms in, particularly Arwen, if you remember, affected northeast Scotland. These are on track to be very similar. Maybe the same areas, and the second one, I think Eunice could extend its winds further across the country. So really and truly, we're watching the space on this one. But yeah, the potential is there. You mentioned 90 miles an hour. I think for most parts, most places will not see, absolutely clear, will not see 90 miles an hour in either storm. It's the exposed areas, the mountain tops, the coastal fringes, the usual suspects that see that sort of wind. For most of us, I think we'll be seeing 60, 70, particularly in the north at the moment. But the second one, the Eunice storm, that is expected to go further south. So, as I say, we're watching the space on these things. It's a moving target. So it's the time of year. We've missed them, and now they're coming in droves.
And what sort of disruption would you normally expect from these kind of storms? I mean, you draw the parallel with Storm Arwen, lots of places probably still recovering from those with roof repairs and the like. I mean, are we talking about trees down, power lines down, threat to life?
Yeah, it's about that, isn't it? These storms always have the capability, and it's the gusts that do the damage, remember. So when we talk about 90 mile an hour or 70 mile an hour, it's the gusts that are the thing that do the terrible damage. So trees down. I know fatalities the last time around, sadly, with trees falling. That's capability is going to be there again. So it's a little bit of advice on these particular days. That's later Wednesday, Thursday morning, and then again during Friday, particularly the PM. Keep away from the woods if you can. The best thing I could say is if it's that hazardous, stay in if you can. Travelling is always going to be what people do to go to work and all the rest of it, but that's where the dangers can be. But you don't put yourself in danger by putting yourself in the worst possible situations, like, for example, walking
Can you
in
tell
woods.
us exactly when are we talking about? What's the time scale? Starting when, finishing when?
Well, I think it starts on Wednesday PM, particularly into the overnight, into Thursday morning. That's the first one. And that's mainly for northern areas. I'm going to say that's sort of M62 northwards. And then the second one looks like it'll be kicking in during Friday, in actual fact, Friday per se. So I think Friday PM is, again, the worst case scenario for these winds when they get to their peaks, Friday PM into maybe the early hours of Saturday. That's what we're looking at this moment.
Jim, thanks for that. Really appreciate the roundup.
You're welcome.
Thank you. We'll leave it there. Thank you. We'll hit the break there. When we come back, top of the hour, we're going to be talking more about Ukraine. Our security editor, Mark White, giving you the latest on the tensions there.
But first of all, here's your forecast.
Hello, very good morning to you. A damp start out there this morning. Rain at times through the rest of the day, but eventually clearing away, albeit lingering in the south. And then a stormy rest of the week as the jet stream, powerful current of winds high in the atmosphere, picks up and spins up a number of storms. Storm Dudley coming through Wednesday night. Storm Eunice Friday. So it's the northern half of the UK with Storm Dudley that will be worst affected by the wind, and then the southern half affected by Storm Eunice on Friday. Pay close attention to Met Office weather warnings and forecasts. At first this morning, outbreaks of rain pushing into southern parts of the country and lingering for a time this afternoon with a strong breeze around the coast. It is going to feel unpleasant here. Elsewhere, brightening skies, some sunshine coming through, but further showers for Scotland, Northern Ireland, Northern England, and these showers falling as snow over the hills. Feeling cold in the north, 5 or 6 Celsius for Scotland, 10 or 11 Celsius in the far south. Clearing skies very briefly this evening, and then overnight the next batch of wind and rain moves in from the west. A damp night for most. The far north of Scotland staying clear of the rain, and here a touch of frost is possible, 0 degrees for the likes of Aberdeen and Stornoway, but further south 8s, 9s for Cardiff, London, Southampton, but a damp and increasingly windy start to the day tomorrow. Gales are on exposed coasts in the south, but increasingly as the first area of rain moves away and the next batch of wet weather moves in for Scotland, Northern Ireland, Northern and Western England and Wales by the afternoon. Attention, as far as the winds are concerned, moves north. And Storm Dudley by this stage is starting to approach Scotland. And as a result, well, it's across northern parts of the UK where widespread gales are expected overnight into Wednesday and Thursday. And risk of damaging or disruptive winds, especially for central and southern Scotland, Northern Ireland and Northern England. An amber warning is in force.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 PM, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
The Prime Minister will chair an emergency Cobra meeting today in a last-ditch effort to avoid any conflict in Ukraine.
Good morning. It's just gone 7 o'clock on Tuesday, the 15th of February. You're watching and listening to Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn and Isabel on TV and on radio.
Here's what we have for you today. Coming up this morning, after speaking on the phone, both Boris Johnson and President Joe Biden stress there still remains a crucial window for democracy.
As petrol and diesel hit a new record high, our reporter Bradley Harris has been finding out how it's affecting the pound in your pocket.
A few months ago, we would think at weekend we'd go out for a run somewhere. Now you do that and you look at how much it's costing you. Just don't use the car, walk or stop in.
OK, let us know how it's affecting you. Liam Hannigan joins us in a few minutes to look at the latest set of employment figures that are just about to be released.
Plus, the Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer's urging us all to buy, make and sell in Britain. Do you always buy British? We want to hear your stories.
You might intend to buy British, but seriously, do you do it? I remember they had this push in the early 70s about buying British, and there were TV ads and everything to go along with it. And I think a lot of people genuinely did try to do that.
Yeah, lots of people saying it's a bit late to the party on this.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. Your view on that one? Are you derided for saying put Britain first, buy British? Are you mocked for that? At GB News is the Twitter address, or you can email gbviews@gbnews.uk.
So our top story this morning, Prime Minister Boris Johnson is to chair a meeting of the Crisis Cabinet Cobra today on the escalating situation in Ukraine.
Now, this comes as American intelligence assesses that Russian forces will be in a position to invade their neighbour as early as tomorrow.
Our Home and Security editor Mark White has this report.
After months of steady build-up by Russian forces, we have now reached a critical juncture. The US intelligence assessment is that Moscow will have enough military assets in place by tomorrow to begin an incursion into Ukraine if it desires. Boris Johnson has now cut short his levelling up visit to the north to chair a full meeting of the UK's Crisis Cabinet Cobra. The Foreign Secretary promised severe sanctions on Russia's rich and powerful should Moscow choose the path of conflict.
We just introduced new sanctions legislation, which is the toughest we've ever had against Russia. That enables us not to just target companies with direct effect on Ukraine, but anybody or any company that has a bearing on the Russian state.
In Lithuania, German tanks have arrived to support the NATO battle group there as Germany's Chancellor heads to Moscow today, warning there is no division between NATO allies for Vladimir Putin to exploit.
I am making it clear once again here in Kiev that Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity are non-negotiable for Germany. We therefore expect Russia to take clear steps to de-escalate the current tensions.
Across Ukraine, many civilians are volunteering to train to defend their nation should Russia invade. People all ages, some with experience in fighting, many with none.
I'm a very peaceful person, and my everyday life skills include cross-stitching, cooking, and so on. But now, I understand that we might have to stand against well-prepared people. And whatever the outcome, in order to resist these people, I must be trained at least a little bit.
And throughout Ukraine, there are mixed views on the vexed question of whether Ukraine should join NATO, an existential threat to Russia, but an option many here believe is vital in safeguarding their security.
The idea that we could potentially give up the goal of joining NATO just because Russia invades us is simply nonsense. Russia had attacked us in the past when, according to our constitution, we were a non-aligned state. That's why I don't see any point in giving up on the goal of joining NATO.
Many countries have already stated their opinion on Ukraine joining NATO clearly and precisely. Basically, it's not exactly like they're eagerly awaiting us there. That's why we should focus on better development of our economy.
These Russian and Belarusian jets are currently exercising near the Ukrainian border. They'd likely be first in ahead of any ground invasion. With his forces now pretty much all in place, the world is watching as the next move lies with Vladimir Putin. Mark White, GB News.
The other news stories you're waking up to. A senior officer admits racism is a problem within the Metropolitan Police. Deputy Assistant Commissioner Baz Javid says people who have racist views are working in the force. He said, however, the Met is not a racist organisation and people are working hard to root out the problem.
Northern Ireland's remaining coronavirus restrictions will be lifted and replaced by guidance today. Under current rules, people are still required to wear face masks in public places and COVID certificates are needed for nightclubs.
One of the developers of the Oxford AstraZeneca coronavirus vaccine will collect her damehood today. Professor Dame Sarah Gilbert will receive the honour at Windsor Castle for services to science and public health.
Sir Keir Starmer has said that a Labour government would back businesses to buy, make and sell in Britain. The Labour leader also stressed the need to make Brexit work after having said that he would not seek to re-enter the EU if Labour comes into power.
Over 70s are being urged that it's never too late to start exercising. New research published in the journal Heart suggests just 20 minutes a day can reduce the risk of cardiovascular disease.
Bristol Zoo Gardens in Clifton will shut its doors for good in September, having been open since 1836. It's been struggling with a lack of visitors over recent years and all the animals are to be moved to a wildlife park in South Gloucestershire.
We started a conversation this morning, which you have been joining in on, which is about extendable dog leads. And apparently, if your lead, this is in Devon, yeah.
If it goes further than a metre, then you can be fined £1,000 because it can cause danger on cycle paths and pavements and things.
That is the point. It seems to be almost exclusively on cycle paths, and tow paths and things, as pointed out by Greg North. The leads are a pain only on busy paths. Say you're out on a bike or you're running, it's like a tripwire. These leads are okay in open areas where the expectation is that dogs would run amok. Now, you gave me an interesting point there, which I didn't know, because you said there are some dogs, in your experience, which don't need leads.
Well, some dogs that are very well trained will walk to heel and will, like gun dogs, for example, or, working dogs, dogs that are, often live outside the house, but not all dogs do have to go on leads. Lynn's got an interesting story. She says recently 3 ladies were on an organised walk along the canal path in Worcester. A dog on a long lead not belonging to them ran through one lady's legs from behind. She fell onto her friend and pushed her into the canal. All turned out well, even though an ambulance was needed. I think the health and safety guidelines for walkers are being revised as I tap away.
Right, okay. Okay.
But it can be dangerous. You can imagine 3 ladies walking chin-wagging along. Yeah, but I think
behind this desk could be dangerous.
For my health.
Me eating that bagel could be dangerous.
Yes, but the point is, I think, like your friend that you just read there, whose name I forget.
He isn't my friend.
OK.
All
right.
North.
Craig North. Greg North. Well, I think if it's a big open space... Stop. How many times have you rolled your eyes at me this morning?
Well.
All right, fine. You're right. All dogs should be allowed to run amok on long leads and trip people up on bicycles, and I'm talking nonsense.
I think it's a great device. I think it's an absolutely good device.
Yes, it means you don't have to walk.
No, I think that in areas where there are cars, that you can keep your dog under control. You let it have a little sniff, you let it do a little wee, whatever it happens to be, and then you can get it back. Dog loves a little sniff and a wee. Mm-hmm. They do. Liam Halligan is here, not to talk about that necessarily, but do you have a dog?
I have 2 dogs, and actually, I'm afraid, Isabel, I'm with Eamonn on this. Now, we had an Irish Terrier, Rosie, and once Rosie had been properly trained, she didn't need a lead. As Isabel said, she would... I live in quite a rural area, a market town, lots of fields to walk in. And Rosie would always come back. She'd maybe run away for a few minutes chasing a rabbit or something, but then she would come back. Rosie unfortunately died, and now we've got Mishka, and Mishka isn't an Irish Terrier because the kids wouldn't let us get another Irish Terrier because it's too samey in respect to Rosie. So we've got Mishka, who's a Welsh Terrier. Bit smaller, but they got some Airedale in them, and Airedales
are wild.
Very, very difficult to train.
Yeah.
Now, Mishka's over a year old, and still I have to have her on a lead because she runs away and she doesn't come back. And if you've got an extendable lead, albeit in a rural setting, she's got a much wider area she can sniff around and have a much nicer time. Now, of course, in an urban area, you've got to be careful with that extendable lead. But I think if you've got a dog, then you're likely to be the kind of person who's caring enough that's going to drive that lead properly so it doesn't extend across cycle paths and trip people up. The idea of fining people for having an extendable lead, I think, Big Brother, state overreach.
Right. As well as being an animal lover, vet, a doggy expert, Liam is also a finance expert and GBNews On The Money presenter. And we're getting a few figures that have just been announced economically that you want to talk to us about.
We are often at 7 a.m. The Office for National Statistics releases numbers. It's just released some unemployment numbers. And they're actually not too bad at all. Unemployment's at 4.1%. A lot of us expected unemployment to spike during the pandemic. It didn't. Lots of people left the workforce, so it's 4.1% of a smaller number. But I think for the most part, people can find work. But the trouble isn't that people are unemployed like they were in the early 80s and then again in the early 90s. It's that average wages are slow and they're behind inflation. And some other numbers that the ONS just put out show that during the 3 months, October, November, December, real wages, that is after inflation, actually fell by almost 1%. That's really significant because that was before we got really big inflation. We've had much bigger inflation in the early part of this year. Everyone knows the cost of living is rising. We talk about it on GB News all the time. Yeah. I know you guys hit it every single morning. It's what people really, really care about. And as the cost of living goes up, the wages after inflation will get more and more compressed, and unfortunately, more and more people will find it tough to make ends meet.
And the ONS also giving some interesting insight into the impacts of the pandemic on the workforce, saying the number of self-employed workers remains low following decreases seen during the coronavirus. But it's interesting that obviously people are getting jobs elsewhere, but they're just finding that working for themselves is just not favourable at the moment.
They're getting jobs, but jobs aren't paying the way they did before the pandemic. I mean, they are in some sectors. If you're an HGV driver or you're a chef, for
hospitality,
instance, big shortages, but in general, wages are lower. And the other thing is that more and more people have withdrawn from the workforce. They don't count as unemployed anymore, so the unemployment numbers are lower. And we should bear in mind, rightly, you have focused this morning on Russia-Ukraine. That isn't just a geopolitical story. That's the reason oil's almost $100 a barrel. That's driving prices when you go and fill up your car or your van of petrol and diesel. Another thing, it's going to drive higher food prices. Russia is the world's biggest wheat exporter. Ukraine's the world's third biggest corn exporter. If there is an escalation in conflict, if there are sanctions, expect basic food prices, unfortunately, to go up as well.
Yeah. Is there any good news, Liam, at all? Because none of this seems resolvable in the short term.
I think the good news is that the UK remains a very entrepreneurial place. We're still generating lots of jobs. There's lots of inward investment coming in to the UK. So I'm generally an optimistic person about the UK economy. When we travel around reporting for GBNews from the nations and regions of the UK, there is a lot of real entrepreneurial ability. There is a lot of jobs being created. The trouble is, these energy prices, when these energy prices kick in April, not just for households, but also for businesses, some of that investment is going to be threatened. So I do think the government's going to have to do more to tackle those high energy prices.
When people like yourself, you talk about entrepreneurialism and whatever, I honestly, there's a whole other thing that people don't talk about, and that is the role of HMRC in all of this. They don't want anybody to be self-employed. They want everybody on a PAYE scheme. They want higher taxes, and they don't want to have people just generating their own cash. I mean, and there is a massive drive, and I don't care if you're a relief teacher, you're a relief pharmacist, you're a window cleaner, you're a gardener, you're a taxi driver. They want you on a PAYE and not self-employed.
I think there's something in that. And I think the government, I mean, HMRC would deny that. They'd say they're even-handed. But a lot of people who are self-employed feel that HMRC all over them for their VAT, whereas the big financial companies get a freer ride. And I think, again, the government's going to have to address this. It's white man van, it's the small businesses, it's the plumbing company with 3 or 4 people on the books. These are the companies, the small and medium companies that employ most of us in the UK. They're the engine room of our economy, and they're the companies that feel tax rises the hardest.
Yes.
We've almost forgotten. We know this higher energy prices for households are coming in April, and we've got some tips for dealing with those on the money at 1 p.m. But we also know there are the national insurance contributions coming in. And I'm afraid a lot of entrepreneurs think of a national insurance contribution rise for both employers and employees as a tax on jobs.
And it is. It definitely is. There's no doubt about it. Thank you very much.
Very nice to see you.
Have a good show at 1 o'clock today.
I'll bring the dogs in next time.
Yes, do.
On the extendable lead.
Look, we'll carry on discussing all the issues that matter, be it dog leads or economy or jobs. Up next, we'll be discussing all the top sports stories with Paul Coit. See you in a second.
Hello, very good morning to you. A damp start out there this morning. Rain at times through the rest of the day, but eventually clearing away, albeit lingering in the south. And then a stormy rest of the week as the jet stream, powerful current of winds high in the atmosphere, picks up and spins up a number of storms. Storm Dudley coming through Wednesday night. Storm Eunice Friday. So it's the northern half of the UK with Storm Dudley that will be worst affected by the wind, and then the southern half affected by Storm Eunice on Friday. Pay close attention to Met Office weather warnings and forecasts. At first this morning, outbreaks of rain pushing into southern parts of the country and lingering for a time this afternoon with a strong breeze around the coast. It is going to feel unpleasant here. Elsewhere, brightening skies, some sunshine coming through, but further showers for Scotland, Northern Ireland, Northern England, and these showers falling as snow over the hills. Feeling cold in the north, 5 or 6 Celsius for Scotland, 10 or 11 Celsius in the far south. Clearing skies very briefly this evening, and then overnight the next batch of wind and rain moves in from the west. A damp night for most. The far north of Scotland staying clear of the rain, and here a touch of frost is possible, 0 degrees for the likes of Aberdeen and Stornoway, but further south 8s, 9s for Cardiff, London, Southampton, but a damp and increasingly windy start to the day tomorrow. Gales are on exposed coasts in the south, but increasingly as the first area of rain moves away and the next batch of wet weather moves in for Scotland, Northern Ireland, Northern Western England and Wales by the afternoon. Attention, as far as the winds are concerned, moves north. And Storm Dudley by this stage is starting to approach Scotland. And as a result, well, it's across northern parts of the UK where widespread gales are expected overnight into Wednesday and Thursday. And risk of damaging or disruptive winds, especially for central and southern Scotland, Northern Ireland and Northern England. An amber warning is in force.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate.
From all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows. Every day, we ask the questions that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Some big sports stories to get comments now from Paul Coit here on Novak Djokovic, tennis player. First of all, he said, Paul, he would rather miss out on future tennis trophies than be forced to get a COVID vaccine.
Yeah, he actually did answer the question. I mean, we knew the answer anyway. Well, he was actually questioned and said, are you vaccinated or not? And he said no. Well, we know that anyway from the Australian Open. But then it went on to say that he would rather miss out on breaking the record than playing in the French Open, playing at Wimbledon. He would rather not play if it meant that he had to get vaccinated. So he's making a stand. He says he's not an anti-vaxxer. He's not an anti-vaxxer himself, but it's what goes into his body is his choice. He says he's pro-choice about the situation.
But he is anti-vaccine then.
But, well, this is what you would kind of imagine, but he doesn't want to be part of the movement, I think. He just wants to be his own man and make his own decision.
Except
and
that's
doesn't want to
not
be
how
pulled
it
in.
works, is it? I mean,
Well,
if you publicly
right,
say that you know, if you publicly express doubts about a vaccine and the contents that it has on your ability to perform and forego the potential to become the greatest tennis player of all time, because he's won Grand Slam behind Nadal for that title, isn't he? Then you must have some problem with it. You therefore are setting an example in his position.
It's a heck of a principle at his age, and as Isabel says, at his stage of where he stands as regards winning majors and being able to add to that. So that is a big statement of principle.
It is a huge statement of principle. I think it's the label. I don't think he wants to go along with this whole anti-vax movement and be seen as a figurehead.
But would you not want a label of being the most successful tennis player ever?
Well, you would have thought so, but then again, if that's his choice, that's what he's decided to do, who are we to argue against that? Because if he's actually prepared to sacrifice the chance of playing in the French Open, if he's prepared to sacrifice playing in Wimbledon, well, that is his choice. If he came out and then said, I demand that I should be able to play, then that's a different thing altogether. But he ain't going to be moving, by the way, by the look on this, and that's what he's saying. He just says he's got the freedom to choose. He's an elite athlete. He has the choice of what he has in his body. He doesn't want it, and so therefore he is prepared to, you know, go down in history as the greatest tennis player ever, which is a big statement.
Who will be moving today is the Russian figure skater Kamila Valieva, who will be competing today, and with the ruling this week that, yes, she's guilty of taking drugs, but she's been allowed to compete. I just think, Isabel, this is a very interesting one. If you're watching this, who's going to be cheering her on? Who's going to be applauding if she wins gold and is on a... there won't be a ceremony, is it?
There'll be no ceremony. Well, you know who will be cheering will be the Russian Olympic Committee, and that's about it. I mean, she, as we said, and Isabel, you were absolutely right. I just think this is a 15-year-old, and
child.
We can't forget this. It's a 15-year-old. She's in the middle of this, and she's saying, she's giving quotes, and then you think, that doesn't sound like that would come from a 15-year-old. I mean, if you're the greatest skater in the world, then maybe you're not a normal 15-year-old. But the situation that she's found herself in, I don't think is her fault. I think it's the whole situation, everything that's going around her. It's the authorities, it's coaches, it's family, whoever it is. She shouldn't be in this situation.
There's no question that the coaches and the team surrounding her are responsible for this incident. But what I'm really surprised by, and perhaps the most disappointed by, is the Court of Arbitration for Sport, who've made this decision. And the International Olympic Committee have said they're also, they said we will follow it whether we agree with it or not, which is effectively saying we don't agree with it.
They actually don't. They obviously don't agree with it because it's just bringing so much heat to these games. It's probably the biggest drug scandal since we look at Ben Johnson back in '88. So how it will go, it's just it will turn into a farce because it's expected she'll win. Yeah. The only thing that will probably stop her winning is the pressure that she's going to be under because she knows that the whole world is going to be watching the women's skating. It's the short programme today, and then the long programme is tomorrow. So. However she does, if she wins it, there will not be a medal ceremony. There's not going to be a medal ceremony for the team event that she's already won because of that. So then you think of the other skaters who have trained for goodness knows how many years to get to the Olympic Games. They won't be involved in a medal ceremony if she's either gold, silver or bronze. If she's fourth, then they'll have one.
Speaking of medal ceremonies, we haven't got any medals yet, have we?
We still haven't, no.
Embarrassing.
Yeah, I know. So I'm just trying to think, well, maybe if she actually is thrown out, does it give us more of a chance? But I think it does. We're still tomorrow. Dave Riding is our slalom guy, so I think he's our biggest hope. Still a chance with the curling, but it's the first time. It'll be the first time since '92 that we've not won any medals.
Oh man, it's unbelievable.
I think there's a reason for it. I mean, sorry,
there's no snow. That's why.
Well, no, but you say that. So a friend of mine, he's a teacher. He went out to the Alps to, I think it's called Aerial 3000, to set up a ski school with Sir Clive Woodward of rugby fame to try and improve Team GB's chances of winning.
What, throw rugby balls on skis?
No, it's just a ski school, effectively. Yeah. But what they've ended up doing, because of COVID and everything, they've ended up having international pupils there for a while, and it hasn't necessarily benefited us. But the idea is,
the problem, though.
Yeah, that we don't have snow, but we are trying to promote our talent.
But also with COVID as well, because this has affected a lot of our athletes. They haven't been able to go over and train properly, whereas you've got a lot of people that
have
a lot
snow
of countries
on their
where
doorstep.
there is snow, they can do that. So that's affected us too, maybe.
There's been an inquiry into the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix in Formula One. What's the outcome?
I just think everything's controversy today, Eamonn. It's, This is what happened with Lewis Hamilton, and this was in Abu Dhabi. And if you remember, back at the end of the year, it looked like he was going to win the world title. Then the race was stopped through a crash, and then Michael Massey, who's the race director, had to call the restart, which then suited Max Verstappen because he had fresh tyres. He ends up going on to win. So Michael Massey was the man that made the decision, which was really controversial. So the FIA, they have been having a meeting about this. We're expecting that there was going to be some sort of statement, but there hasn't been really anything yet. They haven't released anything. And the next Formula One race is in March. So the new season gets underway. So we don't know whether Lewis Hamilton's going to be involved. Could depend on what the result of the inquiry is. But at the moment, still don't know.
Champions League back tonight. We've got 4 English teams in the last 16. Man City, where are they tonight?
They're playing in Lisbon, Sporting Lisbon. Don't see any problem there. I think they're going to be fine. The big game tonight is Paris Saint-Germain against Real Madrid, which would affect then Manchester United, because I'm kind of thinking that if PSG don't win against Real Madrid, and I have a feeling that they won't. Pochettino looks like he could be available, so I don't know whether Manchester United would be interested.
I think you've got to think yes.
You think yes?
I think you've got.
I think it's going to be. I think it's going to happen. So really, it's a matter of when. People are saying that he'd probably leave PSG at the end of the season anyway. Yeah. But Paris Saint-Germain, it's so important to them, probably even more so than Manchester City. They are desperate to win the Champions League. That is what the club is all about at the moment, to the detriment of some fans as well.
Yeah. Premier League matches tonight?
Yeah, Manchester United are playing Brighton today. Manchester United have got a very good record against Brighton. I don't think they've ever lost against Brighton. I'm not putting the kiss of death on this, I promise.
No,
Never.
They have lost against Brighton. I was there.
Not in the Premier League, though. I don't believe it's happened.
Yes, they have.
Have they? Where was that?
Yes, I remember. I was there, and there was one. They won 1-0. Brighton won 1-0.
I don't remember that one.
Well, I'm telling you, I was there because it was a long journey home.
I bet it was a really long journey.
It was a very long journey.
Well, in that case, maybe they're looking for the second one. I've got a feeling for Brighton. I'm really sorry.
Under Mourinho.
Okay, fine. I
remember
apologise.
that.
But
Yeah.
I've got a feeling that Brighton could do something in this.
Yeah.
Because it really, unless we see the gegenpress, that pushing game that Ralph Rangnick keeps talking about, that we don't seem to be seeing from Manchester United at the moment.
Christian Eriksen, so he's stepping up his preparation for Brentford.
He is, yeah. And I'm really pleased for him. This is so I know him really well from his days at Spurs. We know what happened to him in the UEFA Championships, in the European Championships. Nearly didn't come out of it at all. He's had the heart monitor, well, the implantable cardioverter defibrillator that he now has. In Italy, he couldn't have one. It's okay over here. So it's just a matter of getting fit, because obviously he hasn't played since the summer. Played a friendly against Southend yesterday. Came through it very well. Made a goal. It was on his 30th birthday as well, so it'll be really, really lovely to see him.
Yeah, fantastic. And Italy's lost. Such a silly rule.
It's bizarre, isn't it? It really is. They're nervous about it, but that's what that monitor would do, or what the defibrillator would do if there's any problem.
Yeah.
Paul, okay.
Appreciate the roundup. Thank you very much indeed. That's all your sports news. We'll be delving inside the newspapers after this break. Don't go away. GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows. Every day, we ask the questions that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
It's 7:32. Let's take a look at your Tuesday morning newspaper front pages. The Telegraph looks like this. Many of the papers following the same lead. They're talking about the path to peace still being open for Russia after talks between Boris Johnson and Joe Biden.
Metro features Naomi Campbell, the model, being described as a model mum. It says and she says this baby is her baby. The only question arises is she was never photographed or seen pregnant in public, so that is why the question arises. She is my baby. She's not adopted. Also reporting that Western Europe is too dependent on Russian oil.
Yeah, that was according to the Prime Minister. Here is the Mirror. It says the Russian army could strike within hours, as this is the last chance to stop war.
The Eye reports that the residents of Kiev are prepping shelters as they fully expect an invasion from Russia.
The Daily Mail has a different story. Their lead is the death of 33 people who were waiting for justice in the Post Office IT scandal. They also feature that picture of Naomi Campbell discussing her baby, who she says is the love of her life. Finally, The Star discusses the ongoing legal dispute between Rebecca Vardy and Colleen Rooney after Mrs Rooney was granted access to text exchanges between her and Rebecca.
That score, we should say, will vary in different newspapers depending how it was all interpreted. Going through the papers now, we say good morning to the author and journalist, Nikki Hodgson, and former Team GB Olympic silver medalist, Mr Chris Sakabusi. Very good to see you both. Chris, we're going to...
Well, thank you very much. It's great. It's just lovely hearing your voice.
Already.
And you've introduced me so lovely and gently.
Unlike you. But anyway, wake people up, Chris. And the front page of the Eye, like many newspapers here, we're talking about we're getting to the last chance saloon now between Russia and the rest of the world. Where are we at and what's it saying?
Well, yeah, so for me it's vitally important to just pause and to reflect. They're saying that we've got a last minute now to use dialogue. And whatever happens, we're in dialogue now and it will end in dialogue. My challenge is, do we need 1 million body bags in between? And I would suggest that we don't. And in order to not get there, we need to understand Putin. We need to be able to walk a mile in Putin's shoes. What's going through this ageing statesman's head? He doesn't see himself as an ageing statesman. We see him at the end of the table, bringing people on small little chairs while he's on this throne, so we can see his power dynamic. But we've got to try to understand him. So he's at the end of his reign. He's trying to make a voice to Russia, trying to make a legacy statement. He's moving his exercises that are normally interior onto the border, quite clearly with capacity. People are worried for a reason. But what does he want? He wants to be the guy that ensures NATO does not encroach on Ukraine. So if that's the thing, how do we ensure that? And I know that if you're Ukrainian, it's great to have the backing of NATO voices, to know that the West...
The fact in this day and age, in this century, this man is thinking about invasion of another European sovereign state. I mean, stuff that Napoleon would have thought about, or Hitler would have thought about, or Attila the Hun would have thought about. It's primitive, isn't it?
But that's why we need to look through his eyes, because he's not you, he's not Biden, he's Putin.
But Chris, do you think, I mean, a lot of people would say you can't reason with an unreasonable person. I mean, you can never get inside his mind because he doesn't think like a rational person, does he?
Well, he thinks like this Russian leader. And people always say, you've got to remember that in Russia there are 11 time zones, aren't there? The way that the world is thought of is totally different. There is another possibility. Obviously, he does want a buffer between Russia and NATO, and that's why Ukraine's in the fold. But there is a possibility that he could be trying to annex the Donbass region, which is also Russian-speaking, like what he did with Crimea in 2014. And so that could just be one little thing. And remember then, sanctions actually worked. The sanctions that the West imposed stopped the escalation.
Russia still annexed Crimea.
They did. But then that's, and that was deeply unpleasant and a horrible thing for the Crimeans. But the point is, that could also play out. That could be a possibility, and we need to wait and see.
Yeah, and is that a sort of win that the people in Russia would appreciate? Because he's not just playing; he's playing to a gallery.
Yeah.
And also the people are vying for his position. In 10 years' time, we won't be there. Well, who is vying for his position? What is he saying to them that their legacy should be? So there's a whole raft of things that we need to begin to contemplate, not just our Western perspective.
Yeah.
Okay.
I must say, I had a lot of visits to Moscow over the past 5 years, filming, and what astounded me was just how westernised Moscow was. I'm not saying anywhere else is, but just really how they wanted to be Western and they wanted the values that we would have here. And that amazes me, that anybody would really want to alienate the West.
So what you've just said, you've highlighted there the legacy of Gorbachev.
Yeah.
Perestroika, Glasnost, we were there 89. We saw Berlin coming down, the wall coming down. So Gorbachev has got his legacy. what's Putin's. But Putin's much more of a harder man, or portrays himself much more.
I mean, I also remember filming there 30 years ago when people were queuing up for bread in stores and things like that. So things have changed, and I did remember thinking, what is America or the West frightened of this country for? This is a third world country, and a lot has changed in that time, in those 30 years.
Lots have, but when I was in Moscow reporting a couple of years back, and I was reporting on the LGBTQI situation, because obviously we saw what happened with Sochi. This was prior to that. But, you know, like, I went investigating kind of gay clubs that were hidden behind car washes underground, and we needed certain people to get us in, and they were amazing clubs, they were wonderful places, but they were very, very frightening. I was reporting on some of the people that were campaigning for gay rights, and after I did the report, it was for the New Statesman at the time, these people were disappeared. And that was only maybe 5 years ago. So, yes, on the surface, you go and you think everything's quite glamorous, and there's champagne, and people are wearing beautiful outfits, but there's an undercurrent of threat that still is there.
Well, also, and the champagne is for the elites, isn't it, of Russia, and the vast majority are living in terrible poverty.
Is still extreme.
In 1985, so I'm going back a bit, I was repping Team GB in Russia, and I remember, and because I was a soldier, young soldier there, and Russia was quite clearly the enemy. I remember one day looking out of my balcony across the road to a Russian dad. I had a young baby, Shanti, she was only a year old, and his young dad every day come out of his apartment and played with his daughter. And all of a sudden, like scales from my eyes, I realised that's just a bloke, a dad and his daughter. He's not against me, and I'm not against him. So, you know, we do get these mental muddles and mental maps that begin to demonise people when there's ordinary people in Russia who just want to get on, like you and I, with their lives.
Ashanti's a beautiful name.
Oh, bless you. Wow, check out Ava. I'm loving you, fella.
She's a beautiful girl. Thank you. Nikki, last time round you talked about stories that really affect people, like the post office scandal for post office masters, the petrol price situation, and this is another story that you've chosen in the Mail, page 2 of the Mail, the Cladding scandal.
Yes, so didn't we think the cladding scandal had surely come to an end? Well, apparently not, because up until last year, there were still plans to charge leaseholders to sort out their cladding and fire problems in their properties. And finally, the Tory party has come out and said, actually, developers who refuse to help end the cladding scandal could actually be banned from being able to make any more properties. But there is still going to be a small number of leaseholders who will have to pay up to £15,000 to sort out their own properties. And that was to do with, ex-housing minister Robert Jenrick's policy. So Michael Gove has come out and said, we've got this amendment to the building safety bill, which is going to protect the majority of people. But why do we still have a minority of people that could be liable for the charge?
Why we have it is that, despite what Michael Gove is saying, the government aren't doing the right thing or the decent thing, and they should be stepping up and paying and filling these gaps. So what they're really saying is it's a blackmail to developers. They're saying, well, you won't be able to do future projects. And if they do future projects, there's still a price to pay. The future projects will be more expensive. The bills associated will be more expensive because they've got to hive off that money to cover their cladding costs. So the government have not done the right thing. Right from when Grenfell burnt, they haven't done the right thing.
And again, they're not putting people first, they're putting business first, effectively.
I mean, I'm a small landlord, and I'm not leasing, but I've got rentals. And the legislation for my company is really tight. And I'm responsible for the maintenance, refurbishment, and severely regulated, make sure that you're on top of it. So I don't even understand how these major companies at their level got away with it anyway. How can you expect
they got away with it because the government allowed them to do whatever they were doing, and it's the government who are not taking any responsibility for the legislation that they put in place and the standards they put in place.
But for me, it's the local council's on top of my jockstrap. The local council makes sure that you comply to the letter of the law. You would get the book thrown at you if you had that sort of thing in my small little portfolio. So how the major organisations have got away with it, I do not know.
Right, well, I hope this makes some difference, but as you say, there's going to be a lot of people still not covered, and the right thing should be they should be covered.
Absolutely, and this is a chance for Labour, it's a chance for the Lib Dems to step in and say, sort this out. This is an abdication of responsibility, and people's lives are still at stake.
Chris, you've chosen this story in The Guardian, page 10, about COVID budgets being cut by as much as 90%, a real sign that things are moving on. This is to, wind down testing and payments for isolation from next week.
Yeah, and just as when we got into this pandemic, there was lots of nudging and signposting of how we are supposed to go, where we'd go. I'm glad now that we are now getting the signposts and the nudge that, we need to get over it. We've had 2 years, of all these restrictions. And this, because in the end, someone's got to pay for this. This what is it? £15 billion budget for testing has got to be paid for. They're going to reduce it so it's down to 1.5 billion. We've got to live with COVID. We lived with COVID before the major outbreak in 2020. We're going to live with it again now post-2022. And now we get into spring when naturally the effects of viruses fall down. I really welcome this. It's been far too long. I've got a little girl, she's 11.
What's she called?
Sakile.
Sakile.
Yeah, God's like Sakile. And, she's lived with it for 2 years. So 20% of her life has been under this condition. She knows all the language. She reacts immediately to any sort of signpost that she's got to stop and stay inside. So I'm really, really glad that we're going to stop testing people who are asymptomatic. If you're ill, get yourself sorted, stay at home. But if you don't feel ill, go about your business and contribute to the gross domestic production.
Now, here is a story, very, very interesting, in the Telegraph, Nikki. The Metropolitan Police to reveal numbers of fines issued for Partygate events. Now, this, to me, if they do that, then there's more pressure on bringing prosecutions to number 10.
Well, there surely has to be, but the problem here, the devil's always in the detail, there weren't many names revealed. So all we're going to get is numbers of this party, we're going to prosecute 10 people, this party, we're going to prosecute 5 people. What's going to happen? People are going to go online and try and guess who's responsible for what. But it still feels like we are missing the key elements of, who's responsible. If the prosecution, I agree with you
so
that
if this is specific. Sorry, I thought this was for Partygate-like events. This is actually for number 10.
Yes, the Prime Minister could effectively be fined, and we'd be none the wiser.
But we won't know who. So again, what's the point? Almost, it's just it's a non-investigation, and it feels really, insulting to the public. Yet again, they don't care about taking responsibility for what they've done.
I don't know why we need to know that.
You don't think we need to know who did it?
We don't need to know.
A lot of people would know. Well, a lot of people would share your view, Chris.
We've got to jog on. We've got to jog on. I mean, come on. It's been going on and on and on, and you've got some sort of ex-civil servant who's leaking this, leaking that. Come on, let's move on.
It doesn't worry you then the Prime Minister was breaking the rules that he wrote and has...
No, of course...
If he's found to have broken the rules and lied about it.
I don't like the idea, but we've now got to move on. We can't keep on dragging on. We've got potential World War III on our doorstep. We've got energy crisis. We've got all... Come on, no, I was going to say who cares. No, I understand why people care, but we've just got to move on. You can't keep on trawling it.
But we also can't excuse a corrupt government if they are corrupt.
Yeah.
We can't have this slipping standard start now. This is how dictators get in.
Well,
actually, we're talking about Russia, but this is how corruption gets in.
We've had a slipping standards for a very long time, so we do need to clean our act up. I agree with that. And so we put our energy on focus on let's do it right moving forward. But the past is the past. The past is for reference, not for residence. One of my favourite lyrics: "Past is for reference, not for residence." So don't live in the past. Take the lessons out of the past. Let's move forward in the new era of transparency, etc., etc.
OK, that's your moral for today. Chris Akabusi, thank you very much indeed. Nikki Hodgson, thank you. They're going to be back in an hour's time. I hope we have your company to watch what they're talking about next time. Now, 2 years since the start of storms that brought devastation to Wales, there's a warning that people should prepare for them. These sort of storms being a new reality.
Yeah, Natural Resources Wales has warned that floods are no longer exceptional events, but harsh new realities for every community. Let's bring in our Wales reporter, Lily Hewitson, about this. Goodness me, that's not good news then for a lot of people. It's a huge threat for people to be worried about.
Yes, good morning, Eamonn and Isabel. Certainly that is the case. And as you said there, it's a rather worrying claim from Natural Resources Wales today that record-breaking floods are no longer an exception here in Wales. They are the new reality. Now, as you said, this week marks 2 years since storms Kira, Dennis and George triggered the February 2020 floods, which resulted in record-breaking rainfall and river levels here in Wales just 2 years ago. Now, these are some of the most devastating cases of flooding that we've seen here since the 70s. There are around 3,000 properties affected across the country. Now, Natural Resources Wales are saying that communities who are not even prone to flooding should start putting plans in place because it could be a possibility in the near future. Now, I had a chat to Jeremy from Natural Resources Wales about the increased risk of rising water.
The things that we're finding is that people are, maybe forgetting because it hasn't flooded around them recently that they don't think it's going to happen to them. So one of the clear messages with this is that it could do. So one of the things that we're asking people to do, perhaps the first thing that they can do, sometimes people don't realise if they're at flood risk. You can go onto Natural Resources Wales website or .gov.uk website and you can check out whether you're at an area of flood risk. And then on NRW Natural Resources Wales website, there's all sorts of tips of what you can do, including looking at whether you've got insurance for it, and looking at if it were to happen, preparing a flood plan, for example. So our role, as a government organisation, is to take the threats seriously and plan for the future, investing in flood defences, maintaining those flood defences. But there's only so much that we can do to hold back the forces of nature. It's probably going to happen more frequently and in different locations. So people do need to understand and think about the threats to them. Just because it hasn't happened, or doesn't mean that it won't happen. It is important that people think about preparing a flood plan. One of the things that people say who get flooded, unfortunately, when it happens, is that it happens so quickly. I didn't realise it was going to happen so quickly. You haven't really got time to react. So by preparing a flood plan, it takes you through the steps of thinking about what you would do if you were to get flooded. It's not nice to think about, but it is worth thinking about.
Thinking about.
So Jeremy gave me some recommendations about what you can do if you know you live in an area where you may well be prone to flooding. Now, to start off, it's putting those valuables upstairs, and that's something that we can all do, even if you don't live in an area that is necessarily prone to flooding. Secondly, if you live somewhere that floods often, you could think about putting wooden floorings downstairs, or even moving electrical sockets up the wall, which of course is costly, but could save you some money in the long run if your area or business perhaps is prone to flooding, And today there are a few flood warnings across Wales which are worth bearing in mind. One on the River Dee from Llangollen to Trevalyn Meadows, and in areas surrounding the River Wye. There are a lot of rivers which saw a decrease in water levels overnight, but it does seem to be rising around the area in Hay on Wye. So do be mindful if you live and work in areas which are prone to flooding across Wales. And as Jeremy explained, it might well be worth putting a flood plan in place. Back to you.
Lily, thank you very much indeed. Do you know what's interesting? Often it seems the dream to live by a river, or whatever.
It is my husband's dream. It's a constant debate. I'm like, no, we're going to flood. Yeah, the world's changed.
That's why I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it at all. And I think throughout my life and the various houses I've been in, just pure luck that I haven't been on a flooding plain. But it's something you've really got to think of how your life can be impacted.
Your insurance, you're uninsurable as well.
You might be able to ever sell your property. House, whatever, but that's amazing. So from Cardiff, we now go to Glasgow. A new study revealing that Glasgow is the best city for small businesses, with London not featuring in the top 25.
Yeah. We can speak now to Seema Desai. She's the Chief Operations Officer at the small business lender iWalker, who compiled this list of cities. A very good morning to you. And also Francesca Maria, the owner of iPronto, which is an Italian-based catering business in the city. Very warm welcome to both of you.
Could I just say before we begin, Glasgow is, without doubt, always has been one of my favourite cities in the world. So this comes as no surprise to me. I feel very at home at Glasgow when I go there. But Seema, let me ask you this. Also being from Belfast, we're always told you're at a huge disadvantage in terms of trading and business because you were on the periphery of Europe. Glasgow, a very similar situation. So how does it work for Glasgow?
Yeah, thank you. So, yeah, I mean, we're delighted also to see Glasgow at the top of the list. Glasgow is a fantastic city. What we did in the study that we put together is we took data from the Office of National Statistics and scored each city against some key criteria. Things like, so we scored them positively if they were a city that provided employees with a short commute time, if there were low house prices, if there was strong job density, if there was positive growth in the small business market. And if they scored highly against that, then they would come near the top of the list, and Glasgow came right at the top. I think there's so we know that small businesses really are the backbone of the economy. They're responsible for about 2/3 of the jobs in the UK. And yeah, it's no longer just a purely kind of London-centric market anymore. As you said, like London didn't feature highly.
Yeah, well, you explained it straight away when you said commute time and house prices. That blows London out of the water straight away. And it means, I suppose, in a good way, as part of the levelling up era that we're living in, that lots of people wanting to start businesses are moving, I guess, out of the capital.
Yeah, absolutely. We've seen that, I think, and particularly kind of with the crisis that we've seen over the last couple of years, and with the rise of people kind of working from home or working remotely, and still, being able to kind of commute to a big city. Like, we've seen a lot more regionalisation, and people kind of moving into new areas and starting businesses there.
Well, Francesca, let's talk to you, and tell me, Francesca, about the business that you have there, because there's a big Italian community. Historically, there's a big Italian connection with Glasgow, and church building, and also and ice cream parlours and all sorts of things like that.
Yes. Hello. Indeed, there is. But when we first moved to Glasgow, it was 8 years ago for my husband and 7 years ago for the whole family. Basically, we came here as a friend told us, if you want to find a really, really friendly environment, go to Glasgow. People are wonderful, and that's it. So we started our business after, not immediately when we arrived here, and we had all the help that we were in need of, particularly from the council and then from other organizations. So it's not been an easy journey, but not much more complicated than necessary, because everything was helpful. Then, of course, that means you have to work and work hard. But everything, and the town, the environment in general is helping you to thrive. They do all the best they can.
And you are thriving, are you?
Well, I must say, being a catering company at the beginning, we were doing well, but then the pandemic has been absolutely disastrous. We had the plan B ready to go, and thanks God it was ready to go as we switched to caterers, from caterers to producers, and we are now producing ragu. That is our brand, is called È Pronto. We are selling it almost everywhere in the UK, and not in Northern Ireland at the moment, sadly. And things are going on. And then,
and the point I was making about Francesca, the point I was making about being on the periphery of Europe, obviously your transport costs would be higher being in Glasgow. I mean, if you're shipping stuff to Birmingham or you're shipping stuff to Norwich or Plymouth, it's more expensive for you than it would be for somebody based in the middle of England, say.
No, I would say no, because when you use a nationwide deliverer, the cost is that. So if I have to send my products in Scotland, in the Central Belt, or in Birmingham, Manchester, or London, the price is the same. So nothing. Basically, it looks like we are at the edge of something. No. We are absolutely in a level place.
Seema, just give us a sense of the other towns or cities that did well. Obviously, Glasgow up the top, but which other places are great for small businesses?
Yeah, it's a great list. So Glasgow said is at the top, and then the second ranking was Manchester, then Derby, Liverpool, Newcastle on Tyne. They're the top 5.
Great places.
Yeah.
Lovely to hear. Thank you, guys, and continued success and good luck, and congratulations to you both. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
It is amazing, and I love, just regionally, some of the amazing towns. And
You could live quite easily in Glasgow, Manchester, or any of those places.
I could live in
Wouldn't you be very
Manchester.
happy?
I have lived in Manchester.
Yeah.
Newcastle is absolutely amazing. I think I could give Leeds a go as well. Glasgow, absolutely fantastic. There's so many wonderful places around the... Look, listen, if you want to shout out for your town or city, tell us why it's wonderful. Get in touch with us at GB News, and we'll be glad to blow the horn for you.
Lots more coming your way. Stay with us. We'll be back in a few moments.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate.
From all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
Make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel.
Right here on YouTube. You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for...
Breakfast with Eamonn.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
The Prime Minister will chair an emergency Cobra meeting today in a last-ditch effort to avoid any conflict in Ukraine.
Good morning. Just after 8 o'clock on Tuesday, 15th of February. This is Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn and Isabel on both your televisions and your radio. Here's what's going on today.
After speaking on the phone, both Boris Johnson and Joe Biden have stressed there still remains a crucial window for democracy.
As petrol and diesel hit new record highs, our reporter Bradley Harris has been finding out how it's affecting the pound in your pocket.
A few months ago, we would think at weekend we'd go out for a run somewhere. Now you do that and you look at how much it's costing you. Just don't use the car, walk or stop in.
Plus, the Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, is urging us all to buy, make and sell in Britain. We want to know, do you always buy British?
You can join in any of our discussions, and I'm just looking, there's the email on screen. You can also tweet at GB News. I haven't got anything on anybody buying British.
I did see one email which said, I think he's a bit late to the party as old Sir Keir Starmer has been going for a while.
Yeah.
Which is, yeah.
Yeah.
Let us know your thoughts.
The whole thing that we're talking about, dog leads and all that sort of thing today, we're getting good response on that. On the fuel crisis situation, Eric says, when I bought my first car in 1965, petrol was 4 shillings and threepence per gallon. He's done the sums on that. He says that's equivalent to £1.89 a litre now. And bear in mind, we're only paying £1.43.
Yeah, so it's actually more expensive.
So it was
in
more
the
expensive
60s.
back in 1965.
There you go.
The Prime Minister will chair a meeting of the Crisis Cabinet Cobra today on the escalating situation in Ukraine.
This comes as US intelligence officials assess that Russian forces will be in a position to invade their neighbour as early as tomorrow. Our Home and Security editor, Mark White, has this report.
After months of steady build-up by Russian forces, we have now reached a critical juncture. The US intelligence assessment is that Moscow will have enough military assets in place by tomorrow to begin an incursion into Ukraine if it desires. Boris Johnson has now cut short his levelling up visit to the north to chair a full meeting of the UK's Crisis Cabinet Cobra. The Foreign Secretary promised severe sanctions on Russia's rich and powerful should Moscow choose the path of conflict.
We've just introduced new sanctions legislation, which is the toughest we've ever had against Russia. That enables us not to just target companies with direct effect on Ukraine, but anybody or any company that has a bearing on the Russian state.
In Lithuania, German tanks have arrived to support the NATO battle group there as Germany's Chancellor heads to Moscow today, warning there is no division between NATO allies for Vladimir Putin to exploit.
I am making it clear once again here in Kiev that Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity are non-negotiable for Germany. We therefore expect Russia to take clear steps to de-escalate the current tensions.
Across Ukraine, many civilians are volunteering to train to defend their nation should Russia invade. People all ages, some with experience in fighting, many with none.
I'm a very peaceful person, and my everyday life skills include cross-stitching, cooking, and so on. But now, I understand that we might have to stand against well-prepared people. And whatever the outcome, in order to resist these people, I must be trained at least a little bit.
And throughout Ukraine, there are mixed views on the vexed question of whether Ukraine should join NATO, an existential threat to Russia, but an option many here believe is vital in safeguarding their security.
The idea that we could potentially give up the goal of joining NATO just because Russia invades us is simply nonsense. Russia had attacked us in the past when, according to our constitution, we were a non-aligned state. That's why I don't see any point in giving up on the goal of joining NATO.
Many countries have already stated their opinion on Ukraine joining NATO clearly and precisely. Basically, it's not exactly like they're eagerly awaiting us there. That's why we should focus on better development of our economy.
These Russian and Belarusian jets are currently exercising near the Ukrainian border. They'd likely be first in ahead of any ground invasion. With his forces now pretty much all in place, the world is watching as the next move lies with Vladimir Putin. Mark White, GB News.
Well, joining us now, Sir Mark Lyle Grant, former UK ambassador to the UN and National Security Advisor to the Prime Minister from 2015 to 2017. Sir Mark, good morning to you.
Good morning, Eamonn.
Is what we're looking at, what we're hearing, what we're reporting on, is it just inevitable now that Putin and Russia will invade?
No, I don't think it is inevitable. As some of the leaders have said, there is still scope for diplomacy, and the longer that there isn't an invasion, as it were, I think the better the chances that there might be a diplomatic solution to this current crisis. We are entering, though, a very sensitive window because the Beijing Olympics are coming to a close at the end of the week. The Belarus-Russian military exercises are coming to a close, and the Russians do have all the necessary troops, but also logistical backup for an invasion if they wish to take that course. But equally, there's a lot of diplomatic activity with Chancellor Scholz going to Moscow today, and I think there is a reasonable chance that there will be something less than a full-scale invasion. There may still be some military activity by Russia, but equally, there may be a diplomatic pause for the moment.
You were the National Security Advisor to the Prime Minister until 2017. You'll be aware of the kind of briefing then that will be going on in this Cobra meeting the Prime Minister is hosting this morning. He's cancelled all his other plans. He was supposed to be in Cumbria and Scotland as part of this levelling up agenda, but he's focusing solely on this, and he'll be briefing his Cabinet on the latest. What sort of things will they be discussing, and why do the Cabinet need to know all of that?
Well, there's difference between Cobra and the Cabinet. The Cobra is an emergency response meeting, and so they will be focused more on the immediate consequences for the United Kingdom, whether that be British nationals that are still in Ukraine, can they leave the country, or what is going to happen with the embassy in Kiev if there's an invasion, are we ready with the sort of sanctions package, etc., if Russia takes action. It's more those sort of immediate actions in response to the crisis. Cabinet would be a wider discussion of the geostrategic position, reporting on the discussions that Boris Johnson's had with President Biden and other leaders, and getting an assessment from the intelligence agencies about what the chances are of military aggression are over the next few days. So the two meetings are a little bit different.
So, Mark, we can't really imagine President Putin backing off unless he gets something. Unless he's something that face saves him. He won't have gone to all this trouble, all this huffing and puffing without achieving something. What has he achieved? What can he hope to achieve?
Well, the reality is that he has achieved quite a lot already. I mean, he has created this crisis, but he has also exploited it to achieve a number of things. Firstly, and perhaps most importantly, for Putin, he has put himself back centre stage of world affairs. Because 6 months ago, everyone was talking about China, particularly the Biden administration. They weren't really interested in Russia or Europe. It was all about China. Now, everyone is coming to Moscow. They're engaging. President Biden's had two 1 hour long discussions with President Putin. President Macron went to Moscow, Chancellor Scholz is going to Moscow, lots of other ministers are going to Moscow. So he has made Russia and himself the centre of attention again, and that is something. Secondly, he has put his demands out there on the table, and they are being discussed. Now, some of those demands, as we know, that Ukraine should never join NATO, are unacceptable, but nonetheless, they are being discussed, and he would hope to get some further concessions on European security as a result of that. And whilst everyone is concerned about further military aggression, of course it slightly solidifies what Russia has already done by undermining Ukrainian sovereignty, seizing Crimea and destabilizing the east and occupying the east of the country. And lastly, he's used this crisis to strengthen the Russian relationship with China, which is quite important to him. And it's quite significant that President Xi has actually offered some rhetorical support to Putin by criticizing NATO for the crisis rather than blaming it on Russia. So Putin has achieved quite a bit already from this crisis. And if there is some further diplomatic exchanges on European security, maybe reaffirmation of the Minsk agreements, that probably would be enough for him to say, I have achieved what I wanted to achieve, and not take further military action, which would be extremely risky for him.
A lot of people, certainly our viewers, have emailed in saying, why should the UK be involved in this on any level? Why is there so much concern? Do you take the view that many do that, an attack on Ukraine, although it's not our own soil, is really an attack on Western values? A sovereign nation is incredibly important to make sure that the message is clear that that is not acceptable.
Absolutely. We are directly involved in this crisis for a number of reasons. This would be one of the biggest sort of changing of the borders since the Second World War. It could potentially be the largest conflict in Europe, certainly since the end of the Cold War. And anyone who thinks that Putin, if he got his hands completely on Ukraine, would stop there and would not be threatening NATO countries where we are treaty bound to defend them, like the Baltic states, like Romania, Bulgaria, Poland, etc., I think they would be delusional. So the risk is very great of this conflict spreading right in our backyard, and that would affect us. Secondly, there will be a massive knock-on on migration flows across Eastern Europe, on energy prices. So this is not a conflict that we should say it's nothing to do with us, it's about a country far away of which we know little.
Well, Sir Mark, fascinating to hear your analysis. I really appreciate that. Thanks for your time this morning. Sir Mark.
Thank you, Isabel. Thank you, Eamonn.
Thank you very much indeed. He's a former UK ambassador to the United Nations and a national security advisor to the Prime Minister, formerly. Basically, you know, he was saying there, in his knowledge, things can change very, very quickly. And he doesn't think a major conflict is inevitable. He's not ruling it out, but it's not inevitable. And what Vladimir Putin has gained so far, he's made himself the centre of attention. He's got closer to the Chinese, and he's limited military and non-military options against Russia. So very, very interesting.
Yeah,
but
really
the
is.
consequences, as he was saying, if we get involved in conflict, what it does mean for all of us in terms of food, in terms of fuel, and the knock-on effect would be.
And refugees, million refugees potentially flooding across Europe. Look, let's take a look now at what else is making the headlines this morning. The number of UK workers in formal employment has risen again for the beginning of this year. The Office for National Statistics said that salaries also rose in the last quarter of the year, but they continued to lag behind inflation, which is at a near 30-year high.
World tennis star Novak Djokovic says he will not defend his Wimbledon or French Open titles if the tournaments require vaccinations for players. Speaking to the BBC, he said it was a price he was willing to pay and that he prioritised decision-making over winning a trophy.
Northern Ireland's remaining coronavirus restrictions will be lifted and replaced by guidance today. Under current rules, people are still required to wear face masks in public places and COVID certificates are needed for nightclubs.
Immigration rules on care worker jobs have been relaxed. It comes as the social care sector increasingly struggles to attract and keep staff. Care workers have been added to the shortage occupation list, which is designed to help migrants get work visas to fill jobs where there are significant gaps.
Over 70s are being urged that it's never too late to start exercising. New research published in the journal Heart suggests that just 20 minutes a day can reduce your risk of cardiovascular disease.
Bristol Zoo Gardens in Clifton will shut its doors for good in September, having been open since 1836.
It's been struggling with a lack of visitors over recent years. All the animals will be OK, though. They're going to be moved to a wildlife park in South Gloucestershire.
Just bring you up to date with what you're saying about the fuel situation. Tony says Russia's making a ton of money every day by doing nothing. Look at the oil and gas prices right now.
Les says, as someone who has worked in the oil and gas industry for over 40 years, it comes as no surprise that we're now paying high prices. I've seen firsthand the lack of investment in our own supplies from the North Sea and west of Shetland, which is now coming back to bite us.
Eric says, no, who did say? Somebody was talking about fracking there. I forgot where that was. Oh, yeah. Mark says, why can't we increase gas and oil production in the North Sea and why aren't we fracking, you may well ask. So fuel prices have hit that new record at pumps right across the country, ultimately tightening the squeeze on your purse, on your wallet, on your bank account.
Yeah, the AA is reporting oil prices have hit their highest level since 2014 and are expected to climb further in coming weeks. But we're asking, how does this impact on people's spending, their ability to move and travel around? Let's hear from our North West of England reporter, Bradley Harris.
These fuel increases are certainly going to have an impact for many, many people. There are over 30 million drivers in the UK, and for many people waking up, going into their car and heading off to work or to see family or friends, some people might be thinking twice before heading to the pumps. Certainly in the coming days and weeks, it'll be hard to ignore petrol forecourts showing prices of over £1.48 a litre. That's how much it was over last weekend. Last Thursday, diesel was actually over £1.51 a litre, and the AA are now saying that the cost of filling up a 55-litre family car will set you back over £81. So certainly people up and down the country who are already facing an impact on the cost of living crisis, energy bills going up. This will be an added cost for people who rely on cars to get around. Here in Altrincham, it's not the same as being in big cities such as London, where there are convenient, efficient and fast transport networks. For many people here, they have to rely on the car to get around. So as soon as the fuel prices go up, that immediately will have an impact on people. And I've actually been chatting to motorists to find out how much of an impact this is having. Let's just hear some of their thoughts.
A few months ago, we would think at weekend we'd go out for a run somewhere. It's Saturday or Sunday. Now we're thinking, we look at the weather, if there's any sort of chance of rain, miserable day, we'll say, no, it's not worth it, because when you used to travel 30 mile there, 30 mile back, fair enough. Now you do that and you look at how much it's costing you. Just don't use the car, walk or stop in.
It's having a fairly big impact as I need to use the car for work. I work as a fitness instructor and travel to different leisure centres and health clubs around the area. If fuel prices got so high, then I'd maybe have to look at perhaps not travelling as far, changing my work routine. May have to change because it wouldn't be cost effective to be travelling to these places for what I get paid for doing the classes. Or my other alternative is I'd need to look at a smaller car or a cheaper car to run.
Well, I mean, we've got a couple of cars we use to do recoveries. We've noticed a difference there. You know, what we're doing the same amount of recoveries, but the fuel is we're using more fuel, it's more expensive, isn't it? So it's a tenner a week extra. We don't put that on the job. We just got to swallow that and just go with it.
Now, fuel prices at the pump are largely driven by the wholesale price of energy, which shot up recently because of tensions between Russia and Ukraine. On Monday, oil prices hit their highest level since 2014, reaching over $95 a barrel. At the moment, it's $1.48 here in Altrincham, but in the coming days and weeks to come, I think many people's eyes will be looking up to the signs on petrol forecourts, thinking twice before they fill up at the pumps.
Absolutely. Thanks very much. It is a scandal. It's absolutely horrendous and nothing's been done about it, and it's not going to change.
Well, global prices, what can you do?
And the situation with Ukraine.
Making it worse.
As well, it makes it all worse. So listen, if you are making changes to your life, if you're realising, after 3 fill-ups, you've got to use an extra fill-up and it's costing you between 60 and 80 quid to do that. How's it affecting your life? What are you cutting out? Where are you travelling to less? Are you taking public transport? Are you not doing social drives at the weekend, like Isabel, who doesn't believe in them? Well, I'm just saying.
I don't mind you just saying.
I'm just saying, do you know, there's nothing as beautiful as having a car that you like, that you love as a person. It's like almost like a person.
I just don't get it. I love that you love that. It's just some things, cars and football, I just don't understand it.
Maybe put your sunglasses on, and play some nice music, and you're just driving. It's just you and the road. Yeah,
when you're going somewhere, out for lunch, you're all dressed up, love it. But if I've got nothing to do, the last thing I want to do is be in a car.
When I got my first car, me and my brother Bran, who's a year younger than me, we used to just go out in cars, just posing.
Well, yeah, when you were like a 17-year-old boy,
with
fair
your
enough.
elbow out the
Picking up the ladies.
Just posing.
Yeah, I've seen a few tweets of you posing in cars, actually, not that long ago, so not lots changed.
It is 21 minutes past 8 on radio and TV. This is Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel on GB News.
Yeah, after the break, we're talking about cancel culture. Oliver Dowden has weighed into the row. We'll have all of that for you in a moment.
Hello, very good morning to you. A damp start out there this morning. Rain at times through the rest of the day, but eventually clearing away, albeit lingering in the south. And then a stormy rest of the week as the jet stream, powerful current of winds high in the atmosphere, picks up and spins up a number of storms. Storm Dudley coming through Wednesday night. Storm Eunice Friday. So it's the northern half of the UK with Storm Dudley that will be worst affected by the wind. And then the southern half affected by Storm Eunice on Friday. Pay close attention to Met Office weather warnings and forecasts. At first this morning, outbreaks of rain pushing into southern parts of the country and lingering for a time this afternoon with a strong breeze around the coast. It is going to feel unpleasant here. Elsewhere, brightening skies, some sunshine coming through, but further showers for Scotland, Northern Ireland, Northern England, and these showers falling as snow over the hills. Feeling cold in the north, 5 or 6 Celsius for Scotland, 10 or 11 Celsius in the far south. Clearing skies very briefly this evening, and then overnight the next batch of wind and rain moves in from the west. A damp night for most. The far north of Scotland staying clear of the rain, and here a touch of frost is possible, 0 degrees for the likes of Aberdeen and Stornoway, but further south 8s, 9s for Cardiff, London, Southampton, but a damp and increasingly windy start to the day tomorrow. Gales are on exposed coasts in the south, but increasingly as the first area of rain moves away and the next batch of wet weather moves in for Scotland, Northern Ireland, Northern and Western England and Wales by the afternoon, attention as far as the winds are concerned moves north. And Storm Dudley by this stage is starting to approach Scotland, and as a result, well, it's across northern parts of the UK where widespread gales are expected overnight into Wednesday and Thursday. And risk of damaging or disruptive winds, especially for central and southern Scotland, Northern Ireland and Northern England. An amber warning is in force.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate.
From all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
Make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel.
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
That you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
The chairman of the Conservative Party and former Culture Secretary, Oliver Dowden, posted on Twitter yesterday. What did he say, Isabel?
He said, "We cannot be complacent about defending our values against this so-called painful woke psychodrama." He said it will take courage to resist it. Too many have fallen for the idea that it is kind or virtuous to submit to these self-righteous dogmas. It is not. Really interesting intervention from him to analyse this further.
Yeah, but I just want to say about this, I do think where the former Culture Secretary is right, is that I do think you have to be brave.
Oh, definitely.
I do think you have to be brave, because you're some way an awful animal.
Mm-hmm.
You're just the worst of all species if you're seen to say something that does not fit the woke agenda.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this man is very, very interesting. He is Simon Fanshawe. He's founder of the LGBTQ rights charity Stonewall, and he's brought out this book, and his book is The Power of Difference, where the complexities of diversity and inclusion meet practical solutions. And I have to say, Simon, good morning to you, very good to see you. What seems to be really good about this in the first place, you're not being antagonistic, you're not being controversial, you're just trying to say, look, guys, we've got to meet in the middle on this in some sort of mutual respect. It's not that every woke thing is wrong or that every anti-woke statement is right. You're trying to find a practical solution.
I think that's exactly right. Thank you for saying that. But Oliver Dowden, and on the other side, you've got all sorts of activists and various things. And in the middle, there's this huge group of people. This side are being told, I don't care, I'm going to be insensitive, I don't care what, it doesn't matter. Statues, put them, oh, that's our history. Well, it's not our history, actually. There's a debate about statues. Let's have that debate. On the other side, there's the thing that the minute people say something that they may not intend to be offensive, it may be thoughtless. I mean, that's how we learn, isn't it? We make mistakes.
Education, I agree. There is this whole vocabulary that I'm even quite frightened to say the words that we thought were okay that you cannot now say because they're deemed to be offensive somewhere or other. But education, the way is not to cancel, surely. The way is to say, no, actually, here's why that's not acceptable.
I think that's right. I like to think of behaviour and language in terms of broadly three categories. There's careless, thoughtless and malicious. Careless, I did this thing the other day and I said something about, the great British snack, the bacon sandwich, and a guy in a yarmulke put his hand up in the front row and said, not for me.
Yeah.
And that was great. He was sending me up and that was all fine. Malicious, we know what that's about. That's when people deliberately set out to offend. The problem is this stuff in the middle is where it's all ambiguous. We don't know. We're human beings. I can't know how you see the world, how you experience the world, how you feel the world. If anybody's ever been in a relationship, don't you wake up sometimes in the morning and think, I have no idea who you are as you look at your partner. And other days when you wake up and you think, I know exactly who you are. But so this thoughtless bit in the middle, that's when there's a gap between our intention and the effect of the remark. And the danger is to leap on that and move it into the malicious. So I think what we need to do is think carefully about how we treat each other, absolutely. And we need to hear each other's upset or offence or whatever. But we need to realise that's going to happen. And we learn through our mistakes. We learn through dialogue and discussion and finding solutions.
I absolutely agree with you. I would love to tell you words that I've used over the years that I didn't know were in any way. And it wasn't thoughtless. It just was, in my language, that means something. Someone else, it means something else. So the education thing's very important, but the cancel thing, that's pernicious and malicious.
Yeah.
I think the danger of it is that's right, is that once you've moved people into this malicious section, if I can use my tripartite division, once you've imputed a motive to people, what you're then doing is you're cutting off dialogue. So, for instance, if what you say is that there is simply an uncontrovertible, an unbridgeable gap between black people and white people, then what you say to me and my husband is, actually, I, white person, am stuck in the oppression category. He, black person, stuck in victim category. No, actually, what we have is a constant dialogue, don't we? And that's how you have it in relationships. And the book is about work, really, and it's about the fact that you don't need to agree with people. And what you need to be able to do is to collaborate with them and get on with them. And the way we do that, as in any marriage or relationship, is through our differences. It's our differences that bring the richness of our stories. And so when, trans activists say what they say or Oliver Dowden says what he says, actually what I'm trying to do is to create the space, I call them spaces that are safe for disagreement, not from disagreement.
And I think this is why you are so interesting on the topic of cancel culture, because lots of people know you, of course, for all your pioneering work, speaking up for a minority, trying to talk to people of different opinions and set up Stonewall. But you left Stonewall because of its effective cancel culture, the direction it's taken it. And you think that, actually by shouting bigot at somebody else just creates more problems than it solves.
Look, my anxiety is that if you think back, think of civil partnerships. Do you remember when civil partnerships were invented? So, what happened there? What Stonewall did, we did a big survey and we asked lesbians and gays, what are you fussed about at the moment? And they said, we're fussed about the fact that because our relationships are not recognised by the state, when our husband-wife is in hospital, we can't visit because we're not next of kin. When they die, we can't inherit the house, etc., etc., etc. So what we did was we took those concerns and we looked for solutions. Now, had we just said, right, we demand marriage, the Pope and his sister, the government and all the organised churches would have risen up against us and we wouldn't have got that solution. What actually happened was we went down the middle way. We found a compromise which everybody could work with called civil partnerships. And here's the thing. When your mother, granny, aunt, sister, uncle, whatever, who didn't approve of homosexuality was then sat in the front row of the civil partnership, the question no longer was, are they in favour of homosexuality? The question was, is my son, stroke, daughter, nephew, whatever, happy? So in other words, you change the ground by giving people the opportunity to find that middle space. And that book is all about that. It's my experiences of whether it's through the Forgiveness Project or Stonewall or whatever, it's working towards... And I know it sounds like Heidi swinging her plaits in the forest, going, oh, isn't it lovely? It's not, actually. That's where the exciting stuff happens, is when you value people's differences.
But have you suffered consequences for standing up to this kind of aggressive cancel culture? Because, as Eamonn was saying, it takes real courage to speak up, and I suppose a lot of people dare not say anything, don't they? And it's that silence, that complicity, that means that we're bowing down to these pressures from a squeaky minority, many people would argue.
I think that's right. I think you're right. I think people are very frightened. I mean, YouGov did a poll just before Christmas. 40% of people said they were scared to speak up about their opinions at work. I mean, remove it from all this stuff. I mean, say you're in a very liberal environment and you're a Brexiteer or you voted Tory. Universities would be a classic example. Brexiteers who voted Tory in universities don't speak up a lot. So what's happening, I think, is that there's your Oliver Dowdens and your trans activists or your whatevers, and everybody's there shouting at each other. There's this vast group of us in the middle who are saying, actually, what we'd like to do is stumble around a bit. And actually, we don't want change imposed on us. We don't want people lecturing us about what is right. We want to stumble around a bit, discover a bit of truth. And what's happening, particularly in businesses and organisations, is... Can you think of another... I mean, if you know, here, you were sitting down saying, what's our strategy for the next 2 years? And we're going to do a business strategy, broadcast... Would you ever say to somebody in that group, we're not going to listen to you because of who you are? No. You would say, I disagree with what you say. I think our strategy should be this. I think... So why in this area would we not listen to each other and find ways through, you know? And that's the danger. It destroys innovation, it destroys strategy, it destroys all the things that make work work.
And everybody's expected to be an instant expert on the different diversities that are out there. So, for instance, while in everyday life you might be allowed to experiment or get things wrong, if you're a broadcaster, you cannot... You know, I could name you a number of subjects which I would prefer not to talk about, simply because if you say anything that doesn't adhere to the opinion out there, it is a cancel culture.
Can I indulge you? Can you just let me read? Can you indulge me? I say, let me read this quote because it sums up what you're describing. Barry Weiss wrote an article about it. He said, "In this revolution, skeptics of any part of the radical woke ideology are recast as heretics. Those who don't abide by every single aspect of its creed are tarnished as bigots, subjected to boycotts, and their work to political litmus tests. They basically affect an exorcism."
I think the interesting word in that quote is heresy. I'm very dull in this respect. Back to the civil partnerships things. You know, faced with a problem, I like to find a solution. And I think the way you do that at work, wherever, you use this power of difference. You use the different things that people have got. The danger with what's happening at the moment is things are becoming sort of literally religious. In other words, disagreement becomes heresy. It becomes betrayal. Yes. Rather than it becomes the productive seed from which you get new solutions.
It's the intolerance on the woke side that I find. I mean, I love debate. I mean, we're all in this sort of this industry, and you love debate, and you love argument, and you love, you know, finding common ground or whatever. And you can actually talk about things that aren't personal. They can become just an intellectual stimulus. What if, or why do you believe in that? If I say this, why would you say that? That's fine. But I think in a public platform, there's now no room for that.
Well, there's a sort of... I think there's a confusion now between hurt and harm. So people say things like, you make me feel unsafe. Well, there is a difference between feeling unsafe and being unsafe. Yes. Equally, on the other side, Oliver Dowden talks about our history. Well, actually, when you're faced with the slave trade and the way in which the Industrial Revolution, the British economy, and much of the wealth that we still have in the country was built on a massive sin, if you like, the trade in people, that is a debate that I want to have and we should have. And I don't want Oliver Dowden shutting down a debate which should be had by saying, oh, it's woke. Because racism, slavery, homophobia, transphobia, sexism, all these isms and phobias are things that we need to deal with. On the other hand, I don't want the people who are suffering this to be permanent victims and not allow any discussion of a way in which we can find a solution.
It's complicated.
Our viewers say, forget Russia and China, by far the biggest threat to the Western democracies are ourselves. Chris says, woke is a compliment. It means you know what's going on.
Well, that's right. The thing about woke is it does mean that you're awake and alive to these things. And this is a good thing, by the way. Getting rid of discrimination is a good thing, you know. But there's a great quote in the South African Constitution, the first constitution, as it happens, that has sexual orientation in it as a basis for protection. But it talks about unfair discrimination. So not all discrimination's wrong. Rights do clash. We have to make decisions, and the only way we can decide... When Malala was sitting on that bus and the Taliban got on and somebody pointed a gun at her head, he thought he was pursuing his religious freedom. She thought she was pursuing the right to education for girls. Both of them have that right. On the other hand, clearly that right clashes. So my whole point is to find the power of difference, find the way in which we can talk to each other.
We must have you back. We must continue
Fascinating
this.
debate.
Simon Fancho's book is The Power of Difference, and it is available now. We're going to take a break. We're going to be back with the newspapers and what's inside them after this. GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before. It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for...
Breakfast with Eamonn.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Okay, going to take you through our newspapers today. We're joined by Chris Akabusi and Nikki Hodgson. And we're starting off with you, Chris. You've chosen this story, the front of the Mirror, has to be said, front of most of the papers this morning, talking about the next few hours, this window of peace, as President Biden and Boris Johnson put it.
Yeah, and it's very vital. I've said it before, I'll say it again. It's very vital that we understand we've got dialogue here and we're going to have dialogue at the end. We will discuss it in the end. Do we need 1 million body bags going between Ukraine and Russia? I would say no. But we do need to understand what Putin wants. So I was very interested in your segment where you had Sir Mark Lyle Grant, the ambassador to the UN, and he was very articulate quite clearly in some of the things that he might want. Oh, he's already getting. The fact is, he said that Putin is centre stage. He's an Asian can I say dictator, but an aging,
yes, you can, yeah.
An aging dictator who has got to think about his gallery, the Russian people. You can see that they're now centre stage. He's talking to USA. He's got China speaking with him. But I was really interested when he said that he basically what he felt was a non-negotiable was his demand that Ukraine does not get backed into NATO. And I think that's very much what he wants, and very much a legacy that he could have to his people. That I
think he'll get that.
Yes, so do I.
Yeah.
So I was really surprised when the ambassador said, no, he won't get that. Or did I misunderstand that?
Well, no, he corrected himself. The ambassador did come out and say, you know, we don't want to, and then they changed their mind. They do still have ambitions to join NATO. It was confirmed by Zelensky yesterday.
Yes, so they have ambitions to join NATO, and you can understand the benefits for Ukraine. You can already see now we've got so much trade with them. A lot of the weaponry, I saw that Ukraine have got the Stinger missile from the USA. They've got anti-tank weapons from the Western world. So I can understand the benefits of being part of NATO, because clearly, if this war, God forbid that it happens, was to happen, you'll get 1 million refugees going into Poland. And if you get any sort of incendiary happenings in Poland, in Germany, then you've got problems. So I can understand why Ukraine would want.
We're not going to hear this. We're not going to see this. But we never see, Nikki, is what people on the ground in Russia think. I mean, if we did Vox Pops, you did polls, whatever, you say this Ukraine business. Are you really that worried? I would be fascinated to know.
Well,
does Putin speak in their name?
Absolutely. And also, would they tell the truth? Because, you know, Putin has got a reputation for disappearing people that say things that he doesn't like. We have to say that. Normally it's journalists, normally it's politicos. But, you know, an ordinary person who's got a really good insight could easily be in trouble after being on the news, you know. Well, so to protect them, they don't want, you know, we don't want them to speak actually in that way, you know, just for their sake.
And Russian state TV's really ramped up its propaganda against Ukraine, saying that the Ukrainians are going to come up and string up your children on wires and making people really fearful of Ukraine.
The disinformation is quite spectacular, and it is very, very difficult to get to the truth of what Putin thinks and also what the Russians themselves think.
We just talked to Simon Fanshawe there about the power of difference and how it's a good thing and an interesting thing to have different opinions and value those and discuss those. Keir Starmer, Boris Johnson have different opinions, but you go to the Times here on page 12 and it's saying that Sir Keir has received death threats over Boris Johnson and those Savile comments.
Yeah, so let's just remember what happened. Boris Johnson said in Parliament that Sir Keir Starmer was responsible for not prosecuting Jimmy Savile. And that isn't true. It's just not true. And in fact, it's actually a right-wing conspiracy. It's very big on certain parts of the internet. And as a result of that, Sir Keir Starmer has received several death threats. He was forced to flee a mob of far-right activists and anti-vaxxers outside Parliament a couple of weeks ago. The reality is, we have already had 2 MPs in the past few years murdered in terrible situations, and our MPs are not safe a lot of the time. They put themselves on the line, and it's becoming more dangerous to become an MP. It is scandalous that Boris Johnson did not think about the ramification of what he said on Sir Keir Starmer's safety. It's not about either the rights or the wrongs of it. It's thinking about how vulnerable he has now made him. And, you know, he owes him a massive apology.
So, a different tact. I'm not quite sure that he accused him of not prosecuting. My perspective was, he was saying, if the buck stops at my house with Partygate, then the buck stops at the top, then were you presiding over, and does a buck stop at the top? And
The point was, Sir Keir Starmer wasn't the prosecutor at the time of the Jimmy Savile case.
No, but was he at the top?
He didn't. It was nothing to do. The timing was completely out.
Okay.
So that's the issue.
Okay. So that was like you've blown that one out of the water. But the next part was that, look, the quality of our debate in the House has got to be elevated. I agree with you. You know, you've got Cox, you've got Amos. We don't need another tragedy. And it's, when I was a soldier, there was one word that used to be at the top of our boats: loose lips cost lives. And what you've seen is Boris Johnson, a little bit of a scrapper, and he's just shot off from the lip and not really understood the consequences of that. So
But he's a Prime Minister. He's got
but Claire Rayner is a deputy, not deputy.
Angela Rayner.
Angela Rayner, thank you very much. But she's a deputy in her side, and she's also said all things. So look, we've got to clear it up. It's not him or the other. It's just the state of our discourse, rhetoric and discourse. We've got to elevate ourselves so that these things don't happen, because we do need a polity where you can go and have a surgery with your politician and him or her not be scared of their life.
Angela Rayner was called up, wasn't she, by the Speaker of the Commons, and she had to apologise, and the same was asked of the Prime Minister, which he refused to do. So Lindsay Hoyle did ask the Prime Minister to retract the statement, which he wouldn't do. But I accept your comment that there's been lots said outside of the Commons, certainly on both sides of the political divide, and you're right, it's just they've got standards and language has got to be better.
But also, you are role models to young kids who want to get into politics. Do we really want this Yahoo bar, sort of? No, we don't want that sort of discourse. Let's have some intellectual, rational discourse.
It matters.
Now, I want you, Nikki, do you do any exercise?
I do, unfortunately. I say unfortunately, reluctantly. I love it when I get into it. I have to have a personal trainer because I'm so lazy, but I love doing heavy weights. And as a woman, when you can throw things around, you feel so empowered. I absolutely adore it.
Well, you're not lazy. You mightn't be motivated.
I'm not motivated.
Maybe that's
it's
what
definitely carrot and stick with me.
It will stand by. It will keep you in good stead as you age. Chris, we go to the Mail.
Yeah.
Page 3 here, and this is something we're talking about in 20 minutes' time here on the programme. This is exercise in your 70s. Tell us why that is good. People who maybe have never exercised before, this could benefit them.
Yeah, precisely. So there was a study done in Italy. 3,000 people were done in the study, and they showed that people who... So it's about beginning to exercise. So I've exercised all my life. I still go and do 3-4 miles most days, right?
Do you?
Oh, gosh, absolutely.
And you just love it?
Oh, yeah, I just love it. The world's a different place.
But is there never that moment of like, oh, not today, or can't, or do you actually itch and start to feel weird if you don't?
No, you're right. Sometimes you get up and I don't fancy it, but let me tell you, when you go out the door and you're walking, you're a little bit limp, but then you start running and then the endorphins start flying around you. By the time when you come home, yes! You nailed it! You've got to I know the study, but...
I think viewers watching who maybe have overexcitable dogs will appreciate you've got to basically tire them out.
Exercise.
Them out. I think that explains what we've got.
But for this one here, for people who are not like me, who naturally want to go out... The Germans just call it Senioren gymnastics. So even in the 60s and 70s, or 70s, Senioren gymnastics. If you start in your 60s, it helps you in your 70s. And I don't know why, but it's the men who get the best benefit by their mid-70s by starting the exercises in their mid-60s. And so, it could be gardening, cycling, walking. Bit of golf. I'm going to play golf after this, ladies and gentlemen. I'm a bit of a hacker. They call me Akka the Hacker, but I'm out there doing it. So, but get active, even if it's throwing a ball between each other for 20 minutes. I love that in the newspaper, there's a little article where you've got a granny and she's flinging herself around a horse, and they're saying she needs a hypercelifex drink, not a cup of coffee.
See, what is good about that is they're not putting these old people in social care in front of a television and saying, now watch Murder, She Wrote for the next hour and a half or whatever. The idea that a certain form of exercise can seem acceptable, that they throw... what do they throw?
The air balls, but even things like, passing the round this way and then passing it round that way.
Movement.
So it's movement. And that's what he said. There was a little bit here where he says, movement is medicine. Yep. Movement is medicine. I love that.
Or as Liam Neeson told me, Eamonn, motion is your lotion. Thank you very much. Thank you both very much.
You cheered us up on this.
Please come back again and see us soon. What do you play off, incidentally?
Well, I'm 15 now, so I'm coming down. So I'm 15, yes, I get myself around. I normally finish with a ball that I started, but every now and again, snap hook.
Yeah.
4!
Well, I suppose by 6 o'clock tonight, Mrs. Akabusi will have tired, will have calmed down, be ready to come home, fall asleep in his armchair. There you go. What a guy.
You'll need to get out there soon, Chris, because we understand lots of storms on their way. That's what we're talking about next. 2 years, of course, since the start of the storms, which brought devastation to Wales. Now there's a warning that people should prepare for them being, well, a new reality. Natural Resources Wales has warned that these floods are no longer exceptional events.
but harsh new realities for lots of communities around the country. And we go now to our Wales reporter, Lily Hewitson. Lily, there you are. You're by a river in Cardiff, which, you know, from what the report says, may not always be the safest place to be as we go ahead in future years.
Yeah, that's right, Eamonn. I walk past this river most days and the water levels are particularly higher today. But there are some flood warnings in place across Wales. But what Natural Resources Wales have come out and said today is rather worrying, that the record-breaking floods that we've seen in Wales are no longer an exception. They are a new reality. Now, this week marks 2 years, as you said, since the floods of 2020, which were caused by Storm Dennis, Kira and George. And that triggered some record-breaking rainfall and river levels all across Wales. These were some of the most devastating cases of flooding that we've seen, since the 70s here in Wales. There's over 3,000 properties affected across the country. Now, Natural Resources Wales are saying that communities who are not even prone to flooding should perhaps start planning for the possibility that their home or business could flood. I had a chat to Jeremy from Natural Resources Wales about these rising water levels.
The things that we're finding is that people are, maybe forgetting because it hasn't flooded around them recently, that they don't think it's going to happen to them. So one of the clear messages with this is that it could do. So one of the things that we're asking people to do, perhaps the first thing that they can do, sometimes people don't realise if they're at flood risk. You can go onto Natural Resources Wales website or .gov.uk website, and you can check out whether you're at an area of flood risk. And then on NRW Natural Resources Wales website, there's all sorts of tips of what you can do, including looking at whether you've got insurance for it, and looking at if it were to happen, preparing a flood plan, for example. So our role, as a government organisation, is to take the threats seriously and plan for the future, investing in flood defences, maintaining those flood defences. But there's only so much that we can do to hold back the forces of nature. It's probably going to happen more frequently and in different locations. So people do need to understand and think about the threats to them. Just because it hasn't happened, or doesn't mean that it won't happen. It is important that people think about preparing a flood plan. One of the things that people say you'll get flooded, unfortunately, when it happens, is that it happens so quickly. I didn't realise it was going to happen so quickly. You haven't really got time to react. So by preparing a flood plan, it takes you through the steps of thinking about what you would do if you were to get flooded. It's not nice to think about, but it is worth thinking about.
So today there are a few flood warnings in places across Wales. There's one around the River Dee in Llangollen, travelling down to Trevallyn Meadows, and in areas surrounding the River Wye too, which are worth keeping in mind. So do stay safe if you're in those areas which are prone to flooding, and do head to the Natural Resources Wales website for more information. Back to you.
Thank you very much indeed. What's that? They're going to be a bit angry.
Well, they change so quickly as well. It happens when...
I saw in London yesterday there was rain, which actually, it can often be cold, it can be windy, it can be dark and dreary and whatever. But there's not often a lot of rain.
It's been quite dry recently, but not anymore. Half-term week. We can guarantee the kids are off school. It's going to rain. It's Christmas holidays, miserable. Here you go, half-term.
5 to 9 is the time. In the next hour, we're going to find out why people over 70 should really start exercising with Vibe Concepts International fitness presenter Delvienne Clark.
First, here's your forecast.
Hello, very good morning to you. A damp start out there this morning. Rain at times through the rest of the day, but eventually clearing away, albeit lingering in the south, and then a stormy rest of the week as the jet stream, powerful current of winds high in the atmosphere, picks up and spins up a number of storms. Storm Dudley coming through Wednesday night, Storm Eunice Friday, so it's the northern half of the UK with Storm Dudley that will be worst affected by the wind, and then the southern half affected by Storm Eunice on Friday. Pay close attention to Met Office weather warnings and forecasts. At first this morning, outbreaks of rain pushing into southern parts of the country and lingering for a time this afternoon with a strong breeze around the coast. It is going to feel unpleasant here. Elsewhere, brightening skies, some sunshine coming through, but further showers for Scotland, Northern Ireland, Northern England, and these showers falling as snow over the hills. Feeling cold in the north, 5 or 6 Celsius for Scotland, 10 or 11 Celsius in the far south. Clearing skies very briefly this evening, and then overnight the next batch of wind and rain moves in from the west. A damp night for most. The far north of Scotland staying clear of the rain, and here a touch of frost is possible, 0 degrees for the likes of Aberdeen and Stornoway, but further south 8s, 9s for Cardiff, London, Southampton, but a damp and increasingly windy start to the day tomorrow. Gales are on exposed coasts in the south, but increasingly as the first area of rain moves away and the next batch of wet weather moves in for Scotland, Northern Ireland, northern and western England and Wales by the afternoon, attention as far as the winds are concerned moves north. And Storm Dudley by this stage is starting to approach Scotland, and as a result, well, it's across northern parts of the UK where widespread gales are expected overnight into Wednesday and Thursday. And risk of damaging or disruptive winds, especially for central and southern Scotland, Northern Ireland and northern England. An amber warning is in force.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate.
From all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
Make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel.
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
That you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
The Prime Minister will chair an emergency COBRA meeting today. It's a last-ditch effort to avoid any conflict in Ukraine.
Good morning, it's just gone at 9 o'clock. It is Tuesday, the 15th of February. This is Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel on GB News, on your TV and your radio.
Here's what's going on today. After speaking on the phone, both Boris Johnson and President Joe Biden stressed there still remains a crucial window for democracy.
Petrol and diesel prices have hit a new record high, tightening the squeeze on consumers and the pound in our pockets. We're asking, why has the price of petrol gone up?
Plus, people over 70 being urged to engage in at least 20 minutes of exercise a day. It will help heart health. Speaking to an expert on how to get on the fitness train.
OK, well, we start with breaking news this hour in relation to the Russia-Ukraine tensions. And we're hearing in the last few moments from the Interfax news agency, quoting the Russian Defence Ministry, that some troops of the southern and western military districts have started returning to bases after, and I quote, completing their exercises. So this is some suggestion of de-escalation of the situation on that border, which has, of course, been of grave concern.
Our political correspondent Tom Harwood's in the studio with us. What should we read into that?
I think we need to be very, very careful and very tentative about what has happened so far, because, of course, we only have the Russian side of the story. We know that the Americans have been monitoring overhead with satellite and aerial photography for quite some time, so it would be worth seeing whether they corroborate what is going on, because on the one hand, it could be a de-escalation after a huge amount of international pressure. We know that the German Chancellor is in Russia at the moment. We've had the French President, the British Prime Minister, the British Foreign Secretary, the British Defence Secretary, all of these people getting involved, and of course the Americans as well, presenting a relatively united front on what might be a heavy sanctions package. Potentially that's that international pressure starting to work. The military pressure as well, our aircraft carrier up around Norway, our battle groups, the incredible amount of actually military hardware that has been sent out by Britain and other countries. Potentially that pressure is starting to work, although we have no idea right now how many numbers have moved away from the Ukrainian border, if this is simply diversionary tactics from the Kremlin before they want to lull us into a false sense of security. What is going on right now is still very murky, but that's how Russia likes to play it. Russia likes to create senses of confusion and chaos. It has always been thus.
And the statement saying, you know, after our manoeuvres, after our exercise...
That was all it was.
That's all it was. What do we read into the phone conversation last night between Boris Johnson and Joe Biden?
This was a moment for the Prime Minister that I think will have solidified the US-UK relationship, which has been the driving force in the more robust response to this crisis. We've seen that on continental Europe, the countries that are more dependent on Russian gas than we are, and America is, of course, basically energy independent at this stage. They have much more ease of manoeuvre. The UK-US alliance is incredibly crucial here in coordinating the Western response and seeing how NATO moves forward through this crisis. So that phone call is very important. The readout from the phone call that we received last night said that the two leaders promised to remain in close contact. And of course, with Boris Johnson chairing a Cobra committee today and this situation not looking like it's vanishing anytime soon, that close contact will be very important as the days go on.
Just a final thought. We heard the announcement from the US's decision to relocate their embassy out of Kiev to a town called Lviv in western Ukraine. We also know that Melinda Simmons, our ambassador to the UK, is remaining in Ukraine. Will she be remaining in Kiev, do we know? Are there any plans to copy America in that respect?
So we've done a bit of a halfway house. Some of the UK embassy staff have moved to the west of the country, but a contingent has remained in Kiev because there are still British nationals in that part of the country who the UK feel it's proper and right to deal with on location. So yes, some UK Foreign Office staff have moved, but some have stayed as well.
Okay, fantastic.
Okay. Thanks, Tom. Appreciate the update there. So reports emanating from Moscow that there has been a withdrawal in the south and the west of the Ukrainian border of some Russian troops who the Kremlin says were involved in exercises.
Yeah, we'll keep a close eye on that developing story for you here. Meanwhile, fuel prices have hit a new record high at the pumps across the UK, ultimately tightening the squeeze on consumers' wallets.
Yeah, a lot of this has to do with the situation between Russia and Ukraine. But we're now going to speak to Howard Cox. Howard is founder of Fair Fuel UK. Howard, good morning to you.
Good morning.
There's nothing much very fair about what we're facing at the pumps, is there?
No, not at all. And it's crippling to many low-income drivers, small businesses. It's really impacting. The important thing here is the government could do something about it. We're in a cost of living crisis, which is much more important than the climate change hysteria that's going around. What you need to actually put more money back into consumers' pockets so they can get this economy motoring. Sorry to use the pun.
Just give us a sense of how bad it is at the moment. I mean, what does it cost the average family now to fill up a tank, and how does this compare with, say, a year ago?
Well, we're looking at something like 50% more than a year ago. We're looking at about £80 to fill up the average family car. But the thing is about this is that we have no idea how these pump prices are arrived at. We're calling for, I'm working very closely with backbench MPs, notably Robert Halford and Craig McKinley, to introduce a body called Pump Watch. We have Ofgem, we have Ofcom, we have Ofwat, but for 37 million UK drivers, 80% of the electorate, we don't have any protection on consumer protection for when they're filling up their cars and vehicles and trucks that we so vitally need. I'm backed by the Road Haulage Association, for example, and everything that's in your studio there was once on the truck and was driven by a truck that's fueled on diesel. What we need is to get fuel duty cut. The last 12 years, we've managed to actually have fuel duty frozen. The campaign's been very successful in achieving that, but we're still the highest tax drivers in the world. And when you see Germany, France and Italy paying for diesel 8 to 10p less than we're paying here, you ask yourself why. They're buying the same oil and the same petrol and diesel from around the world. Why are we being penalised over here?
I mean, Howard, they mightn't have the same political agenda as to, how much they need the duty, where they're spending the duty and their obligation to green taxes. So I would say on that front, I wish you all the best, but I would say you have two hopes on this, Bob hope and no hope, really, because do you really think, my friend, that the Downing Street administration as it is now would be open to say, let's put these green taxes on the back burner?
Well, we're getting a lot of support, a huge amount of backbench support, Eamonn, and I do take your point, and I was a big fan of Bob Hope. And I'm old enough to remember all his road films. The thing is, from my point of view, and from 1.7 million supporters of Fairfield UK, we want to see fairness at the pumps and transparency at the pumps. We do not need to have it. And one of the things which we haven't mentioned is the fact that the government are enjoying something like 3 to 5 billion in extra VAT because of the high pump prices. And if they actually pass that on to motorists, that would be something like a 10p cut in fuel duty. It's a balancing act in this situation. We've got to put more money into consumers' and drivers' pockets to get this economy motoring.
And it really is hard, it's hard and unfair because let me ask you this. I mean, a lot of people say to me how much more often they've got to fill up their tank. And there's two things. They're not just complaining about the price, Howard. They think that the new greener fuel in diesel and petrol just doesn't go as far as it used to. Have you been hearing that?
Absolutely. The new E10, which is actually basically twice as much ethanol in petrol than previous to the E5, the 5% level, that does actually reduce your fuel consumption by 3%. And people who actually can't take E10 are forced into buying the E5 99 octane fuel, which is about 10 to 15p more expensive. They're the ultimates, the premiums you see in the pumps. We're being hit in all directions. And we honestly asking the government, and I accept your point about this, I'm not going to give up on this, and nor my supporters and my colleague, my co-campaigners. We are going to fight like mad for some sanity at the pumps. And I think we're getting a good hearing at the moment in Parliament.
Well, good luck, Howard. If we can do anything to help you, get behind you, help the people of Britain and being able to afford their transport, please do let us know. Hard cock.
Well, could you get them to go to our website, which is fairfueluk.com, and sign up for free?
Fairfueluk.com and sign up there for a better deal with your fuel prices. Hard cocks, appreciate it. Good luck to you. Thank you very much.
OK, at 9:10, as we mentioned in the last few minutes, the Russian Defence Ministry has said it's returning some troops from the Ukrainian border. That's according to local media. The Russian news agency Interfax is reporting the military's continuing exercises in a number of other areas. It follows after Boris Johnson and President Biden said there is still time for a diplomatic solution to avert a war.
The number of British workers in employment rose again at the beginning of the year. The Office for National Statistics said that salaries also went up in the last quarter of the year, but continued to lag behind inflation, which is at a near 30-year high.
World tennis star Novak Djokovic says he will not defend his Wimbledon or French Open titles if the tournaments require mandatory vaccinations for players. Speaking to the BBC, he said it was a price he was willing to pay and that he prioritised his body over a trophy.
Developers of the Oxford AstraZeneca coronavirus vaccine will collect her damehood today. Professor Dame Sarah Gilbert will receive the honour at Windsor Castle for her services to science and public health.
And Bristol Zoo Gardens in Clifton will shut its doors for good in September, having been open since 1836. It's been struggling with a lack of visitors over recent years, and all the animals are to be moved to a wildlife park in South Gloucestershire. Right, we've been talking about dog leads this morning. There's been fines introduced in Devon if you extend your lead more than a metre. It's because it's caused a number of accidents with bicycles and pedestrians getting tangled up. And we've been asking for your opinion. And I have to say, outpouring of opinions on this, haven't we? Lots of people getting in touch.
Yeah. Dale says, I was coming out of a shop in the town centre and someone let their dog lead extend right across my path and I had to step over it. I just looked at them and said, thanks for that. He never even answered.
You can tell.
It's a tough
your
world
thoughts
out
about that. Peter Sherratt is more your kind of view. He says, this is nonsense. I walk an energetic sprocker on a retractable lead. When we're in an open space, I extend and he's able to get some exercise. When we're on a pavement or near a road, he's reined in. Common sense.
Yeah, I suppose it all depends on your own experience with your dog and how well your dog is trained or how good you are as an owner as well. And I mean, you wouldn't let your child run amok. Well, having said that, a lot of people do. It really irritates me when you're on an airplane and people don't sort of, try and contain their children.
Oh, my gosh, this is another talking point altogether.
Are you like that? Do you worry?
I try and contain my children. Yes. You've met my children. They're quite hard to contain.
What are they like travelling?
The same as they are when they're in your face trying to say, hi, Uncle Eamonn. I mean, they're full of beans.
I love your children.
No, they're adorable, but they're,
slightly mad, but they're
just like the
then
mother.
I see the parents. That's all they really do there.
It's just like the dogs, the mad dogs.
We had a very interesting chat with a man called Simon Fanshawe half an hour ago. His book, The Power of Difference, talking about wokeism. And Alan says, can someone actually explain to me what woke actually means? It just seems to mean people with guilt patronising other groups. But maybe I've got it wrong. Maybe more people would agree with the ideology if it was clear what it stood for. And I think what Simon was trying to say is if there was less cancel culture and more tolerance, more respecting of each other's differences, we could all learn from each other. There would be a bit of give and take on that.
It was interesting, Oliver Dowden on that saying too many have fallen for the idea that it is kind or virtuous to submit to self-righteous dogmas. It takes courage to resist, and this is a painful, woke psychodrama.
OK, 14 minutes past 9. British nationals in Ukraine have been warned not to expect a military evacuation. They're being urged to leave immediately amid fears of that Russian invasion. The UK and the US have been joined by multiple countries in issuing warnings to people who are still in the country. Our London reporter Alice Porter spoke to some Britons who are in the process of trying to leave Ukraine.
Ukrainian forces preparing in case of another Russian invasion. Meanwhile, thousands of British citizens have been trying to get flights out of Ukraine after the government advised them to leave as soon as possible.
I've been in two minds about coming back because of the advice coming out by the British Embassy about the Amber Alert, Red Alert. A lot of people, a lot of students were waiting for the Red Alert, and it happened yesterday. Once that happened, everybody booked their tickets and left.
The Foreign Office says in-person consular assistance to Britons who remain in Ukraine will not be possible, as more than 100,000 Russian troops are currently amassed on Ukraine's border.
The danger is a very real one that the Russians will attack again, and this time not simply take chunks of territory, but might attack with missiles aimed at strategic targets, particularly infrastructure, to sow panic, confusion, and ultimately to result in the change of government.
So you're in Kyiv at the moment and you're going to be getting on a flight today out of the country. What are you hearing in terms of the situation at airports? Is it being well managed, or are we seeing some quite chaotic scenes of people quite desperate to get out of the country?
There are all sorts of rumours flying around that airlines, international airlines, may stop flying to Ukraine. And we are very anxiously watching the news. The main problem being that insurers of airlines are not willing to risk, serious security issues in the skies over Ukraine. Remember, it was the MH17 that was shot down over Ukraine in 2014.
For those who've been living in Ukraine for most of their lives, getting on a flight out of the country comes with mixed emotions.
I will feel very sad. I will feel very, shall we say, aware that there are many millions that would have left for a safe haven or refuge that do not have that chance. But I will go with a sense of responsibility to do my utmost to help Ukraine, Europe, Britain, through these darkest hours that we face.
Alice Porter, GB News.
Thank you, Alice. Coming up next, we'll be discussing the latest showbiz news with Stephanie Tacky. But first, here's the weather.
Hello, very good morning to you. A damp start out there this morning. Rain at times through the rest of the day, but eventually clearing away, albeit lingering in the south. And then a stormy rest of the week as the jet stream, powerful current of winds high in the atmosphere, picks up and spins up a number of storms. Storm Dudley coming through Wednesday night. Storm Eunice Friday. So it's the northern half of the UK with Storm Dudley that will be worst affected by the wind, and then the southern half affected by Storm Eunice on Friday. Pay close attention to Met Office weather warnings and forecasts. At first this morning, outbreaks of rain pushing into southern parts of the country and lingering for a time this afternoon with a strong breeze around the coast. It is going to feel unpleasant here. Elsewhere, brightening skies, some sunshine coming through, but further showers for Scotland, Northern Ireland, Northern England, and these showers falling as snow over the hills. Feeling cold in the north, 5 or 6 Celsius for Scotland, 10 or 11 Celsius in the far south. Clearing skies very briefly this evening, and then overnight the next batch of wind and rain moves in from the west. A damp night for most. The far north of Scotland staying clear of the rain, and here a touch of frost is possible, 0 degrees for the likes of Aberdeen and Stornoway, but further south 8s, 9s for Cardiff, London, Southampton, but a damp and increasingly windy start to the day tomorrow. Gales are on exposed coasts in the south, but increasingly as the first area of rain moves away and the next batch of wet weather moves in for Scotland, Northern Ireland, Northern and Western England and Wales by the afternoon. Attention, as far as the winds are concerned, moves north. And Storm Dudley by this stage is starting to approach Scotland. And as a result, well, it's across northern parts of the UK where widespread gales are expected overnight into Wednesday and Thursday. And risk of damaging or disruptive winds, especially for central and southern Scotland, Northern Ireland and Northern England. An amber warning is in force.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Very nice to see you again with the time at 22 minutes past 9. You're watching and listening to Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel on GB News.
Yeah, we're talking about this iconic image on the front of lots of the papers this morning. You can just about make out Naomi Campbell there holding her gorgeous, chubby little baby. It's going to be the cover of Vogue magazine in March. She confirms that this is indeed her biological daughter. Let's bring in Showbiz reporter Stephanie Tecci to get all the details on this, because there's lots of speculation about whether or not she had in fact adopted a little girl.
There was, because Naomi surprised us all last year when she just came out with this Instagram post showing her baby's feet. We were like, hold on a minute, you weren't even pregnant, because a couple of weeks before the Instagram post, she was on Paris Fashion Week strutting down the catwalk, looking as slender as ever, and now you've come with this baby. So a lot of people are saying either it was adoption or either it was IVF, but now she's shut down the rumours in this interview with Vogue. She doesn't give us too much. I know we've got the lovely picture of the baby and her on the case, but she says she is my child, but she doesn't specify, was it through IVF, was it through surrogate, but actually Naomi's going to save all those details for a book that she's going to be published. She hasn't started writing it yet, so we've got a long way to wait, but it's this thing with all these celebrities who are over a certain age, because they're defying
She's over
nature.
50.
Yeah,
She's 51 at the time of the baby's birth.
She's defying nature. So most women who are like haven't had kids and were like, if Naomi can do it at 50, we can do it. But Naomi's got the money, so I think she should open about and say how this actually happened. But again, Naomi gets a lot of attention, so I can imagine she's a mother hen right now over her daughter. We still don't know the daughter's name.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? We can see the baby's bare bottom, but we don't know her name. Isn't the world a bit upside down sometimes? OK, let's turn our attention to...
Congratulations to her.
Yeah, I'm very happy
She's
for
so
Naomi.
cute.
I'm glad she made motherhood happen for her. You know, I've interviewed her many times, and, you know, it was always a question that's been brought up and one that she's had to be like, I don't know. So she's made it happen.
Is she doing it alone?
Well, again, we don't know.
Oh, so much
we don't
mystery.
know. She hasn't said who the father is, so we're going to have to watch this space. We'll probably wait another 20 years for that to come out.
She's a stunningly gorgeous woman.
She is.
But are you ever on eggshells, really, when you're interviewing her?
Yes, you know, I've interviewed a lot of celebrities, but when I get into that room with Naomi, I literally have butterflies in my stomach, because I don't want to ask the wrong question, but I have to. But she could be quite defensive as well, and you know what? I respect her for that.
Good.
You know, she's been through a lot in the media.
OK, let's turn our attention to Kanye. Of course, split from his wife, a year ago. He was at the Super Bowl on Sunday night with his daughter that he shares with Kim Kardashian, and he's now going through one of his, well, I can only describe as sort of Twitter meltdowns or Instagram meltdowns, trying to get his ex-wife back.
I just feel like someone take Kanye's phone and just stop him going on Instagram. It's quite entertaining for us, but the thing is, he actually is going through one of his episodes, and, you know, it's quite scary for Kim Kardashian and Pete Davidson, her new boyfriend, because, you know, Kanye keeps on posting all these things about him, and she sent him a text message and said, you know what, Kanye, you're putting Pete's life in danger. Can you hold off doing this? And again, he's posted a message online and he said, don't worry, I'll handle Pete myself.
Oh.
So it's just turning very nasty, and it's not showing Kanye in a good light.
But there is this public following, and people either want them back together again or think they should go their separate ways. What's your reading of that?
I did an Instagram poll. This is a non-scientific poll. 53% want them back together, 47% not. But he was Instagramming saying the Super Bowl brings families together. For everyone married, hold your spouse close. Make sure they know how much you love and appreciate them. And that was just a bit sad. And I was like, let the family be back together.
This is typical narcissistic behaviour. In my mind, you know, when Kim was single and she was fighting for the relationship, Kanye was being so slanderous against that family, like dissing her mum, dissing Kim, all this stuff. But as soon as Kim's now got a new boyfriend, he wants to fight back for his family. So how genuine are you being, Kanye?
I think he's just done well. Yeah. And I really just hope he gets some treatment, and then maybe they can get back together after that.
No.
In the fairy tale. That's the dream. All right.
Will Colleen Rooney and Rebecca Vardy ever get back together again?
Oh, gosh, no. This has just gone too far, the Wagatha Christie scandal. And it's getting really nasty. Yesterday, Colleen's bid to sue Caroline Watt, who is Rebecca Vardy's agent, got thrown out of court, and she now has to pay £65,000. Ordinary person will be crying, but Colleen, Colleen was like, that's okay, it's fine, it's a reasonable amount. But she's not stopping, even though she's received this blow. She said she's actually going to do an individual case against Caroline later on.
And the big court case will happen in May.
Yes, it is. But I'm sure there'll be more things that will come out before then.
Watch this space. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Lovely, Stephanie, having you here. Thank you.
Have
Always
a great day, guys.
Thank you. And everybody watching at home and listening, you have a great day too.
Yeah, we'll be back tomorrow from 6 o'clock. But for now, it's Tom Harwood with the briefing, and that's after your weather.
Hello, very good morning to you. A damp start out there this morning. Rain at times through the rest of the day, but eventually clearing away, albeit lingering in the south. And then a stormy rest of the week as the jet stream, powerful current of winds high in the atmosphere, picks up and spins up a number of storms. Storm Dudley coming through Wednesday night. Storm Eunice Friday. So it's the northern half of the UK with Storm Dudley that will be worst affected by the wind, and then the southern half affected by Storm Eunice on Friday. Pay close attention to Met Office weather warnings and forecasts.